Hello, this is Whispers in the Rain. Welcome to tonight's story time, a collection of real stories pulled straight from the depths of Reddit. Dim the lights. Let the rain drown out the world beyond your walls. And as you listen, remember, these are the stories people swear are true. Comment below where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. You've scrolled far enough. Now close your eyes and let the whispers begin. Story 1. The Clock Only Ticks at Night. By u/Hollow Steps. I moved into my new apartment last month. It was cheap, clean, and close enough to my work that I could walk. Honestly, it felt like a steal. The building itself is old, built in the 1930s, with creaky wooden floors and that smell of aged plaster that always clings to older buildings. But I kind of like that charm. It makes me feel like I'm part of a history I'll never fully understand. The first couple nights were uneventful. I unpacked, set up my computer, and even made friends with my neighbor, a quiet woman named Beth who worked nights at the hospital. It wasn't until the third night that I heard the ticking. Faint at first, like a distant metronome. I assumed it was a pipe, or maybe someone's wall clock. But when I walked to the kitchen, it grew louder. There was no clock in my apartment. I checked my phone, thinking maybe a video had auto-played or some background app was glitching, but it was silent. Still, the ticking persisted, tick, 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 in perfect rhythm, never speeding up or slowing down. I walked from room to room, ear tilted upward like a dog searching for a sound. No source, just ticking. It stopped around 4 a.m. The next morning, groggy and annoyed, I asked Beth if she had a loud wall clock. She looked confused. No, she said, I'm barely here at night. I werk als shifts. I laughed it off, blaming my overactive imagination. But the following night, the ticking returned. Exactly at 2:13 a.m. I watched the time change on my phone, and like clockwork, pun not intended, it started. Still no source. Still no visible clocks. That night, I stayed up until dawn just listening. Tick, tick, tick. At 4:01 a.m., it ceased. I considered calling the landlord, but what would I say? Excuse me, but there's an invisible ghost clock in my unit. Instead, I bought a white noise machine and hoped for the best. But on the fifth night, the ticking wasn't the only thing I heard. There was something else. A shuffle, a breath, a whisper. I froze in bed, holding my breath so I could listen. The ticking was still there, steady as ever. But under it, almost woven into the sound, I heard what I could only describe as breathing. Shallow, rhythmic, like someone standing just outside my door. I stared into the darkness of my bedroom. My apartment is small, just a bedroom, kitchen, and tiny living room. There's no space for someone to hide. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was nearby, maybe just beyond the wall, breathing in sync with the ticking. The next morning, I checked the hallway outside. Nothing. Just the same peeling wallpaper and flickering overhead light. I knocked on Beth's door to ask if she'd heard anything. She didn't answer. Maybe she was at work. I considered setting up a camera, but didn't want to freak myself out further. I was still clinging to the hope that it was something simple. Pipes, old wood shifting, or maybe even my own tired mind playing tricks on me. Still, I couldn't sleep the next night. The ticking returned at exactly 2:13 a.m. again. But this time, it didn't stop at 4:01. It kept going. By 5 a.m., I was pacing my room. The ticking was louder. Not by much, but enough that I knew it wasn't just in my head. And the breathing was back. Closer. I finally decided to tear the place apart. I pulled my bed from the wall, opened every drawer, cabinet, and closet. I even crawled beneath the kitchen sink, flashlight in hand, looking for old vents or crawl spaces. Nothing. Just dust and spiders and the shame of desperation. At 6:12 a.m., the ticking stopped. The silence hit me like a slap. My ears almost rang from the absence of sound. I stood in the middle of the room, heart hammering. There was no one here. Nothing had changed, but I felt watched. Not just paranoid watched. I mean studied, observed. I didn't go to work that day. That afternoon, I tried a nap, hoping to reset my sleep cycle. But when I closed my eyes, I could hear the ticking again. Soft, impossibly soft, like it was inside my head, like it was waiting for night to return. The next few nights blurred together in a haze of sleep deprivation and paranoia. Every night, Exactly at 2:13 a.m., the ticking would start. And every night, it got just a little louder, more insistent, more deliberate. I started recording audio on my phone, thinking I could capture it and maybe analyze the sound. But the recordings never picked up anything. Just silence and the occasional creak of the buildings settling. No ticking, no breathing, nothing. It was maddening. Out of desperation, I bought a cheap antique wall clock from a thrift store. I thought maybe, somehow, putting a clock in the apartment would cancel out, absorb the ticking. Something. I hung it in the living room and waited. That night, when 2:13 struck, two ticks sounded in perfect harmony. The old clock on the wall and the other one. The one I couldn't see. They ticked together for a few seconds. Then the antique clock stopped. I stood there staring at it. The second hand had frozen mid-sweep, its metal arm trembling like it was resisting something. And then, in the silence of my breathless fear, the unseen ticking got louder. Almost angry, I ripped the clock off the wall and shoved it in a drawer. Its ticking didn't return, but the other one did. And now it felt personal. Beth finally answered her door the next day. She looked tired, eyes sunken, hair tied back sloppily. I asked her if she ever heard anything strange at night. Ticking, breathing, whispering. She just stared at me and said, "You're in 3B, right?" I nodded. Her face went pale. "Don't stay up past the ticking," she whispered. "That's when it notices you." I asked her what that meant, but she just closed the door, locked it. I could hear her mumbling something through the wood, but I couldn't make it out. That night, I tried to go to bed early. I took melatonin, drank tea, avoided caffeine. I even left a podcast running softly beside me, just to distract myself. I fell asleep before 2, but I woke up to the sound of ticking. And this time, it wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from under my bed. I didn't move. I just lay there, stiff as a corpse, eyes wide in the dark. The ticking was unmistakable, louder now, more defined, like someone had placed a metronome directly beneath my mattress. Tick, tick, tick. I could feel the rhythm in my spine. Then came the breath. Shallow, wet, like someone struggling to breathe through clenched teeth. My mouth went dry. My body screamed at me to run, to leap from the bed and turn on every light in the apartment, but I couldn't. I was pinned by dread. I squeezed my eyes shut and told myself it would stop at 4:01. It always did, but tonight was different. At 3:47 a.m., the ticking ceased, and in the silence that followed, I heard something slide across the wooden floor, a slow, deliberate scrape. It moved from under the bed toward the closet. My closet door creaked softly as it opened, then closed. Still, I didn't move. Eventually, I drifted into a nightmare-laced sleep. I awoke after sunrise, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. The closet door was ajar, just a crack. I grabbed a flashlight and a kitchen knife, forcing myself to check. Nothing inside but clothes and an old shoebox. No footprints, no signs of anything living. Still, I knew what I heard. I felt it. I decided I had to leave. I began packing, shoving clothes into bags and gathering essentials. But when I tried to open the front door, it wouldn't budge. The knob turned, the lock clicked, but the door felt sealed, like it was glued to the frame. I checked the windows, all painted shut. I even tried the fire escape, but the latch was rusted, unmoving. I was trapped. I texted Beth in a panic, asking her to come over or at least call the landlord. No response. That night, I didn't try to sleep. I sat in the corner of my bedroom, lights on, phone fully charged. I stared at the closet, daring it to open. At exactly 2:13, the lights flickered. The ticking began again, this time from inside the closet. I stared at the closet door, the ticking pulsing from within like a heartbeat. I gripped the knife tighter, my palms slick with sweat. The room felt colder than it should have, like the air itself recoiled for whatever was hiding in there. I reached for my phone to record again, but the screen was black, dead, even though it had been fully charged hours before. The closet door creaked open an inch, then another. Tick, tick, tick. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The ticking quickened, growing erratic, off rhythm now, like a broken mechanism struggling to function. I expected something to leap out, to crawl, to whisper, but it didn't. Instead, a voice, low, flat, genderless, spoke from the darkness inside. "You're awake too early." I dropped the knife. The door slammed shut. The ticking stopped. My lights flickered violently and then shut off completely, plunging the room into black. I sat there, trembling, too scared to move. I stayed like that until dawn, when the lights sputtered back to life. When I opened the closet, everything was as I'd left it. No sign of anyone or anything, but the air inside smelled different, like dust and metal, like old timepieces left to rot. I didn't go to work again. I couldn't. I needed answers. I went online and searched for anything tied to the apartment building. Urban legends, deaths, hauntings. I found an article from 1992 about a tenant in 3B who vanished without a trace. He'd called 911 multiple times in the weeks before, reporting clock sounds and unseen footsteps. The police chalked it up to mental illness. His name was Robert Dell. The article included a photo. His eyes were wide, too wide, desperate. I banged on Beth's door until she opened. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "You think I didn't try? I lived in 3B once. 2 years ago. I moved next door after it let me leave." "What is it?" I asked. She whispered, "I think it's time. Not like the concept. I mean, the thing. I think it lives in the quiet moments, in the space between seconds. And the ticking, it means it's noticed you." Beth wouldn't talk anymore after that. She shut the door gently, like slamming it might stir something up. I stood in the hallway for a while, staring at the number on my door, 3B. The brass digits looked tarnished now, older than before, like they'd been sitting there for decades, untouched by time, yet somehow decaying in its presence. When I got back inside, the antique clock I'd hidden in the drawer had started ticking again. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even opened the drawer, but it was ticking, and its second hand moved backward. I threw it in the trash chute. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I armed myself with a baseball bat and sat facing the closet, phone charged, camera open. I was going to get proof. If this thing wanted to play games, I was ready. At 2:13 a.m., my phone froze. Not shut down, froze. The camera app locked on a single frame, and the entire screen glitched like it was trapped in a loop. Then came the ticking. Only this time, it didn't start soft. It exploded into the room. Tick, 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 tick. It was deafening, like hundreds of clocks were inside my walls, under the floor, in my head. I dropped the phone and covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound vibrated in my bones. Then the voice returned. "You should have stayed asleep." The closet door swung open, and something stepped out. I couldn't see it, only its outline. A distortion like heat waves rising off pavement. Humanoid, but wrong. Its arms were too long, its head too still. The ticking came from within it. I backed away slowly, heart racing, but it didn't move toward me. It walked to the wall and placed one long hand against it. The drywall peeled, like paper curling from flame, revealing gears. Giant, rusted gears embedded in the building itself, turning in slow, grinding motion. The creature stepped through the hole and vanished into them. Then the walls sealed shut, and silence returned. My phone power back on. The time was 2:12 a.m. I stared at the screen, confused. The ticking hadn't even started yet, but I remembered it all. I still felt the vibration in my bones. I looked at the closet, closed again. Had it shown me something? Or had I fallen out of time? The days that followed didn't feel real. Time stopped behaving normally. Sometimes I'd blink and hours had passed. Other times I'd sit for what felt like half a day, only to find the clock had moved by 5 minutes. I couldn't trust the sun, the clocks, even my own heartbeat. They were all out of sync. I called in sick to work, again, and told them I might need medical leave. I didn't lie. Something was wrong with me, but not in the way anyone could fix. At night, the ticking returned, but now it didn't wait for 2:13. It started earlier. Some nights at 1:50, others at 2:08. It shifted, testing me. The sound no longer stayed in one place. It wandered from the closet to the kitchen, from beneath my bed to the space behind my bathroom mirror. Sometimes I even heard it outside my door, pacing in the hallway. Once I caught a glimpse of something reflected in the dark screen of my TV, just behind me. A shape, not human. Beth came to see me one evening. She knocked softly and entered without a word. She looked paler than before, almost translucent. She handed me a key and said, "This opens to A. It's been empty for years, but there's something in there you need to see." I asked her what. She just said, "Proof," and left. I didn't go that night. I was afraid. But the following morning, once daylight pushed back the dread, I walked up the stairs and unlocked the door to 2A. Dust blanketed every surface. Sheets covered long-forgotten furniture. But in the center of the living room sat a grandfather clock, unlike anything I'd ever seen. No markings, no brand. Its face was blank. Its pendulum was still. And yet it ticked. Tick, tick, tick. I approached it, drawn forward like gravity had shifted. On the floor in front of the clock was a small notebook. I picked it up. The first page read, "If you're reading this, the clock has chosen you too." The rest of the pages were filled with names, addresses, and dates stretching back decades. Some crossed out, some circled, some labeled unreturned. At the very end, written in shaky black ink, was one final note. "Don't let it tick alone. Watch it, or it watches you." I brought the notebook back to my apartment. I shouldn't have. That night, the ticking didn't come from the closet or the walls. It came from inside my head. It synced with my pulse, my breath, my thoughts. Every second was accounted for. At 2:13 a.m., I looked in a mirror and saw nothing staring back. No deflection, just darkness. Now I understand. Time isn't just passing. It's feeding, watching us tick by second, until we notice it, until it notices us. I haven't slept in days. If I sleep, I won't be watching. And if I'm not watching, it will be. So if you ever hear ticking with no source, don't ignore it. And whatever you do, don't let it tick alone. Story 2. The House on Wren Hollow Road by u/back porch whispers. They warned me not to buy the house on Wren Hollow Road. The neighbors weren't subtle about it either. When I first toured the property, an older man in overalls stood at the edge of his yard across the street and just shook his head at me. A woman watering her flowers stopped and whispered something I couldn't make out. The realtor chuckled nervously and said, "They're superstitious, old town legends and such." But I didn't care. The house was perfect. 2 stories, big wraparound porch, huge yard, and the price was insane. Almost too good. I figured maybe there was termite damage or a messed up foundation. But the inspection came back clean. So I signed. I moved in alone. No family, no pets. Just me and a mountain of boxes. My plan was to take it slow, fix one room at a time, make it my own. I started with the upstairs guest bedroom. The windows overlooked the woods behind the house, and the sunlight made the faded wallpaper glow. Peaceful, at least during the day. It wasn't until my 4th night that I heard the footsteps. I was brushing my teeth when I heard them. Slow, steady steps coming from upstairs. The strange part was, I was upstairs. My bedroom is on the 2nd floor, and I hadn't gone down since dinner. I froze, toothbrush still in my mouth, and listened. The steps continued. Not above me, not below, beside me. From the guest room, I crept into the hallway, holding my breath, and glanced toward the guest room. The door was half open, just like I'd left it. But I swear, on everything, I saw the corner of the bed dip like someone just sat down. I backed away and closed my door, locking it. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I convinced myself it had to be the house settling. Old wood, temperature changes, acoustics. Totally normal. Still, I avoided the guest room for a while. That lasted until the scratching started. It came from inside the walls, right behind the headboard of my bed. At first, I thought it was mice. The scratching started faint, almost gentle, like something was clawing lazily at the drywall just behind my head. I banged on the wall a few times, hoping to scare whatever it was, and for a few minutes it stopped. But that night it came back. Louder. It wasn't random either. It followed a pattern. Scratch, scratch, pause. Then 3 fast scratches. It repeated that rhythm over and over. I lay awake with the covers pulled up to my chin, listening. It sounded almost intentional. The next day, I called an exterminator. He checked the attic, the crawl space, even drilled a small hole in the wall to peek inside. No droppings, no nes, no shell marks. Clean as a whistle, he said. No signs of rodents. Maybe you've got a branch brushing the siding, but there are no trees near that wall. Just open yard. Still, I nodded and thanked him. That night, I didn't even make it to bed. As I passed the guest room to brush my teeth, the light inside flickered on. It's an old house. I figured maybe faulty wiring. I walked in to shut it off, and that's when I saw it. The bed had been turned down. Neatly, pillow fluffed, blanket folded back, like someone had prepped it for sleep. I haven't touched that bed since the day I moved in. I checked the windows. Still locked. I turned the light off, closed the door, told myself it was just some weird draft or an electrical glitch. But when I turned to go back to the hall, I saw it. A footprint. One. Bara. Small. Right in the middle of the wooden floor, outlined in dust. Just one. I stood there staring at it until I heard the scratching begin again. But this time, it wasn't from my bedroom. It was from inside the guest room, right behind the wall I was standing next to. I backed away from the wall slowly, heart pounding in my throat. The scratching had returned to its rhythm. Scratch, scratch, pause, 3 quick scratches. It almost sounded like a code, or a knock, like something was trying to communicate. I went downstairs that night and slept on the couch with the TV on. I couldn't bring myself to sleep with that room directly across the hall from mine. At around 3:30 a.m., the living room light flickered and died. The TV shut off a second later, leaving me in darkness. Then I heard footsteps, soft and deliberate, coming down the stairs. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Just lay there frozen under the blanket like a child, hoping the monster won't see him. The footsteps stopped right behind the couch. I felt something shift the air, like something was standing there waiting, watching. Then came the whisper. It was barely audible, dry and broken like old leaves crumbling between fingers. I couldn't make out the words, just the shape of them. Harsh consonants, breathy vowels. It made my skin crawl. Every hair on my body stood up. I closed my eyes and clenched my fists, waiting for whatever was behind me to touch my shoulder or breathe down my neck. But it didn't. The air grew still again. A long silence followed. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the power was back. The TV was on. The lamp, too. There was no one behind the couch. I didn't sleep again until the sun came up. The next morning, I checked the security camera I'd installed above the porch. I'd put it there more to deter raccoons than intruders, but it caught a wide angle of the front yard. I scrolled through the footage from the night before. At 3:17 a.m., something moved across the lawn. It wasn't human. It was short, pale, and crooked, its limbs bent wrong, like it had too many joints. It didn't walk so much as twitch forward. It stopped in front of the house and stared up at the second floor, at the guest room window. Then it smiled. I paused the footage and stared at that awful grin. It wasn't just creepy, it was wrong. Too wide, with no lips, just a row of jagged, gray teeth stretching almost ear to ear. The thing had no eyes, just dark hollows sunken into its face like the sockets had collapsed inward. It stood there for 5 minutes, not moving an inch, just grinning up at the guest room window. Then, without warning, it dropped to all fours and scuttled out of frame like a cockroach. I didn't leave the house that day. I kept all the lights on, every curtain drawn. I even pushed furniture in front of the guest room door. I didn't care how crazy it looked. I wasn't going in there again. That afternoon, I decided to walk down the road to talk to one of the neighbors. The old man in overalls had always been watching the place, like he knew something. He answered the door with a tired look in his eyes. Before I could say anything, he said, "You've heard it, haven't you? The scratching, the footsteps." I nodded. He stepped onto his porch, glancing around like he was afraid someone, or something, might be listening. "It's not a ghost," he said. "It's older. It doesn't haunt the house. The house belongs to it." "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Used to be a man. A long time ago. Dabbled in things he shouldn't have. Blood things. Made deals with the woods behind that house. Now it's just hunger and hollow things." I felt sick. Has it ever hurt anyone? He looked at me for a long time. "It doesn't need to hurt you. It just needs you to see it. Once you do, it won't let you go." I left without saying goodbye. That night, I duct taped the guest room door shut. I nailed boards across it. I piled furniture in front of it like a barricade. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up in bed with dirt on my feet. The guest room door was open. I stood there, staring at the wide-open door, heart pounding in my ears. The furniture I'd used to block it was gone. No, not gone, just moved carefully, silently. It now sat neatly pushed against the far hallway wall, like someone had rearranged it with purpose. Inside the guest room, everything was exactly as I remembered, except for the smell. It was earthy, like wet soil and rotting leaves. The window was shut, but the air was cold and damp. I stepped inside against every instinct I had. The bed was still made, but something had written on the pillowcase in a thick, rusty smear. "You looked." I stumbled back and nearly tripped over the corner of the rug. As I caught myself, my hand landed on the floor and felt something soft. I looked down and saw a small clump of hair. Not mine. Coarse, gray, and sticky with dirt. That's when I noticed the floorboards. A section near the far wall was darker than the rest. Stained. I pulled the rug aside and found the outline of a trapdoor, its edges slick with grime. I had never seen it before. Not during the tour, not during move-in, not once. My hand hesitated over the iron ring embedded in the wood. Then the scratching started again, from beneath the floor. I ran, back downstairs, out onto the porch. I tried calling someone, anyone, but my phone had no signal. No Wi-Fi. No explanation. I turned to go back inside and froze. The figure was standing in the upstairs window again, staring down at me. It didn't move. It didn't blink. Just stood behind the glass with its lipless grin and sunken hollows. It tilted its head, just slightly, and raised one long, pale hand, and waved. I slept in my car that night with the doors locked. In the morning, I found footprints in the dew on my windshield. Small, border, leading in circles. I drove to a motel 5 towns over and stayed there for 3 nights. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't lock the front door. I just left. I wanted to believe I'd overreacted, that my mind was unraveling from stress, isolation, bad dreams. But even in that bland, corporate motel room, I couldn't escape it. The scratching followed me. It started on the second night. Faint from inside the motel wall. Same rhythm. Scratch, scratch, pause, 3 quick scratches. I left the TV on, turned up loud. It didn't help. I didn't sleep. On the third night, I saw something in the hallway mirror. I passed on my way back from the vending machine. A brief, flickering shape just behind my shoulder. The same crooked posture. The same unnatural grin. But when I spun around, there was nothing. Just a cheap carpet and humming fluorescent lights. I checked out the next morning and, with nowhere else to go, returned to the house. I didn't even pull into the driveway. I parked on the road, engine running, and stared at the place from a distance. It looked different. The porch railing sagged more than before. The shutters hung unevenly. The air around it felt thick. But the guest room window was dark. No one was watching. I went inside only long enough to grab my laptop and documents. But before I could leave, something compelled me to check the trapdoor again. It wasn't curiosity. It was more like gravity. I peeled back the rug, expecting to be sealed, but no, it was wide open. And from the darkness below, I heard breathing. Shallow, vet, inhuman. I leaned closer, heart pounding. The air down there was colder than ice, thick with the scent of mildew and blood. Something shifted in the shadows, slow and deliberate. I saw fingers, pale and too long, curling up toward the edge of the opening. And then it whispered my name, not aloud, in my head. The whisper echoed in my mind like a thought I hadn't created. It wasn't a voice I recognized, just a cold, dry presence brushing against the edges of my consciousness. I stumbled backward, slamming the trapdoor shut and pulling the rug over it like a child hiding a nightmare under the bed. But it was too late. That night, even back at the motel, I felt it inside me. Not physically, but in my timing. I blinked and minutes vanished. I began a thought and realized I was already halfway through it. Like I was skipping, like something was editing me. On the 4th night away, I woke up in my bed, in the house. I don't remember driving back. I don't remember unlocking the door or climbing the stairs. I just opened my eyes and found myself lying in the very room I had sworn never to enter again. The The guest room. The trapdoor was open, but this time, something was on the ceiling. It clung like a spider, limbs bent backward, head twisted upside down. It had no face, just a wide, sucking maw that pulsed slightly as it breathed. It didn't move when I screamed. It didn't flinch when I ran. I grabbed my car keys, bolted outside, and drove until my gas light came on. That was 3 days ago. Now I'm writing this from a diner off Route 14, where the fluorescent lights flicker and the waitress keeps asking if I'm one of them sad-eyed ones from Wren Hollow. I haven't responded. I don't think I'm the first to come here like this, because last night, in the parking lot, I saw it again. The crooked figure. It didn't approach. It just stood beneath the streetlight, swaying gently like a reed in still water, watching me. I checked my phone just now. The last saved photo on it is a picture I didn't take, one of the trapdoor. Open. Something pale rising from it. A hand, I think. I want to delete it, but I can't. The file won't erase. I've come to accept something. The house didn't want to be left behind. Whatever that thing is, whatever he became, it chose me. Or maybe I chose it the moment I stepped through the front door and ignored the warnings. I still hear the scratching, even in daylight, even in my sleep. And sometimes I find dirt on my floor. Not much, just a few specks, like something climbed out again. So if you ever find yourself on Wren Hollow Road, and you see the house with the sagging porch and the boarded-up window upstairs, do yourself a favor. Don't look in, because if you see it, it sees you too. Story 3. I found a hidden room behind my closet. By you/bedtime wrestling. It started with a draft. I'd lived in this apartment for 2 years without incident. Top floor of a dusty old building, creaky floorboards, unreliable heat, the works. But last week, I noticed a cold breeze coming through my closet. Not from the window, from a back wall. At first I figured it was a loose board or maybe poor insulation. I pushed my clothes aside and ran my hand along the wall. That's when I felt it. An edge. A seam where there shouldn't have been one. I knocked on it. Hollow. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a screwdriver and started chipping away at the panel. It didn't take much. The wood came off in big splinters, revealing a narrow doorway. No knob, no frame, just an opening into darkness. A hidden room. My heart was pounding. I should have called the landlord, or the cops. But instead, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped inside. It was colder than the rest of the apartment. The air was stale, dry like a forgotten attic. The room stretched about 10 feet deep, walls covered in old peeling wallpaper, faded flowers barely visible beneath mold. The floorboards groaned with every step like they didn't want to hold my weight. There was a mirror on the far wall, oval-shaped, antique. Its surface was cloudy, warped. I walked up to it slowly, expecting to see my own face staring back in distorted glass. But I didn't. The mirror was wrong. I could see the room behind me, but my reflection wasn't there. No silhouette, no shadow, just the image of the closet and the hallway beyond it. I leaned closer, breath fogging the glass slightly, and that's when something moved in the reflection. Not me, something else. It scuttled across the floor just behind me and vanished into the shadows. I spun around. Nothing there. I stood in that little room, heart thudding, flashlight trembling in my hand. There was no sign of anything moving. No rodent, no drafty curtain, nothing that could explain what I'd seen in the mirror. I told myself it must have been a trick of the light, maybe a moth, a shift in shadows. That's what I wanted to believe. But the feeling in the room was wrong. Like I wasn't alone. Like something had noticed me. I backed out slowly, keeping my eyes on the mirror. Still no reflection. Still no sign of me in the glass. I pulled the closet door shut behind me and stuffed a towel into the seam to block the draft. Then I sat on my bed and stared at the closet for the rest of the night. Every sound amplified, every creak suspect. The next day, I tried to tell a friend. I showed her the opening, the room behind it. But when I brought her over, the wall was solid. No sound, no hollow sound, just plain plaster, aged and cracked like the rest of the building. "You okay?" she asked. I laughed too hard and said I must have dreamed it. We watched a movie and ordered takeout. I didn't bring it up again. But that night, I heard scratching. Not from inside the walls, from the mirror. A light, glassy tap. Then another. Like fingers. I didn't go in. Instead, I pushed my dresser in front of the closet and tried to sleep. But around 3:12 a.m., I woke up suddenly, ice cold. The closet door was open. The dresser hadn't moved. The door had shifted through it. I walked to it slowly, one hand on the wall for balance, and peeked in. The hidden room was back, and the mirror was glowing faintly, as if reflecting candlelight. I hadn't lit any candles. I raised my phone to take a picture, but my screen glitched and died. Then softly I heard it. A voice. Not from the room. Not from behind the mirror. From inside it. It said my name. I slammed the closet shut and didn't open it for 2 days. Sleep became nearly impossible. I kept waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m. Always 3:12, cold, sweating, heart racing. And every time, without fail, something in the apartment would be just slightly off. A light would be on that I hadn't touched. A glass would be out on the counter. Once my bedroom window was unlocked, even though I never opened it. The worst part? The mirror was always back. That hidden room, the cold space behind my closet, I couldn't trust when it would appear. Sometimes it was gone, solid wall, and no seam. Other times, I'd open the closet and see that dark opening yawning behind my coats like a mouth, waiting to be fed. I tried filming it, recording the sound, bringing people over. Nothing ever showed up on camera. The room didn't reveal itself to anyone else. I started to feel insane. One night, I tried something different. I stood in front of the closet with my flashlight and whispered into the crack beneath the door. "Who are you?" At first, nothing. Then a scrape, a dragging sound like fingernails across old wood, and then a whisper barely audible. "Come see." I didn't. Not that night. But the next morning, I found something new waiting just outside the closet door. A photograph. Old, black and white, faded at the corners. It showed a young boy standing in what looked like my apartment, but the walls were bare, the floors dusty. He was barefoot, grinning, and holding something in his arms. A cracked mirror, oval-shaped. On the back of the photo, written in smeared pencil. He left the door open too. I didn't recognize the boy, but something about his eyes chilled me. They weren't looking at the camera. They were looking slightly past it, like something was behind the photographer. That night, I boarded the closet shut. I nailed thick plywood across the frame and stacked furniture in front of it. I even left the lights on and slept with headphones in, blasting white noise. But at 3:12 a.m., everything stopped. The lights, the sound, the air, and then, from behind the wall, the mirror whispered again. "You looked. Now it sees." I didn't sleep after that. Just sat upright in bed, blanket clutched in my lap, staring at the barricaded closet. I could feel it, something pressing against the wall from the other side. It didn't move, but the air did. It pulsed like a heartbeat, like breathing. The next morning, I tried to leave. I had no plan, just the urge to escape. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, opened the front door, and the hallway was gone. In its place was another room. Long, narrow, wallpapered in the same moldy floral pattern as the hidden space behind the closet. It stretched farther than the building should allow, ending in darkness. I stepped back and slammed the door shut. When I opened it again, the hallway was back. I didn't try again for hours. Instead, I opened every window, every blind, hoping daylight might somehow push whatever this was away. But the sun never reached the closet wall. The light from outside bent around it, leaving that corner in a permanent, heavy shadow. That night, I dreamed of the mirror. Except this time, I was in it. I stood in the reflection, staring out at my bedroom, pounding on the glass, screaming, but no one could hear me. I saw myself asleep on the bed, oblivious. And something behind me, tall, thin, watching. When I woke up, my bathroom mirror was gone. Just gone. No broken glass. No frame. Just a clean, blank wall. I ran into the living room. The old mirror from the hidden room was there, propped against the far wall, cloudy and pulsing faintly. I backed away slowly, heart hammering, and called my friend again, the one I'd shown the closet to before. I begged her to come over, not to ask questions, just be here. She hesitated, but said she'd come by after work. That night, I waited in the kitchen with all the lights on, but she never came. At exactly 3:12 a.m., there was a knock at the closet door. Not the front door, not the wall. The closet door behind the barricade. 3 slow knocks. Then a whisper. "We'll show her too." I didn't respond. I didn't move. I sat in the kitchen clutching a dull steak knife, as if that would matter. The knocking stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. Dense. Intentional. The mirror in the living room began to fog. Not with breath. With movement. From the inside, a shape glided behind the glass. Just a smear of shadow, too tall and too thin. It pressed something, its face maybe against the inside. I saw the faint suggestion of a mouth stretch into an open grin, impossibly wide. No teeth. Just black. I fled to the bathroom and locked the door. I curled into the tub like a child and waited for morning. The next day, I called my friend again. She didn't answer, so I walked to her apartment, only a few blocks away. Her roommate answered, said she hadn't come home last night. No texts, no calls, nothing. I told her roommate the truth, more than I should have. She stared at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. I'm not sure anymore. But as I left, I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. A glint in their hallway mirror. When I turned, I saw her. My friend, standing inside the reflection. Not trapped, just watching. She lifted one hand slowly and pressed her fingers to the glass. Her eyes were wide and empty. Her mouth hung slightly open. Her hair floated around her head like she was underwater. And behind her, the shadow moved. When I blinked, she was gone. I stumbled out into the street and nearly threw up. That night, I found a second photograph on my kitchen table. Same black and white style. This one showed 2 people. The boy from the first photo, and now the girl, my friend. Both standing in the hidden room. Both holding the same cracked mirror. Both smiling in that awful, stiff way that made their faces look wrong. The back of this photo had only 2 words scrawled in jagged script. Join US. I burned the photo, lit it over the stove, watched the edges curl, the faces blacken and vanish. The smoke stank, acrid, thick, far too much for a single picture. It filled the kitchen and lingered, clinging to the walls like tar. But that night, the photo was back, lying on my pillow, unburned. That was the moment I stopped pretending I could fix this. I wasn't going to reason it away, wasn't going to hope it would fade if I ignored it long enough. Something had seen me. Something had marked me, and it was dragging others into whatever this was. The hidden room wasn't hidden anymore. Now, whenever I opened the closet, even slightly, it was there, waiting. The mirror always in the same place, gently pulsing, as though breathing with anticipation. Sometimes, I'd catch glimpses of motion behind the glass. Sometimes I'd hear names whispered. Mine, my friends, strangers. One evening, I put on headphones, blasted music, and tried to ignore it. At 3:12 a.m., the music stopped. Not paused. Stopped. Mid-beat. I pulled off the headphones, heart pounding. The entire apartment was dead silent. Then came the voice. Not from the closet. From behind me. "You're almost ready." I turned. The mirror was sitting in the middle of the room. I never saw it move. My own reflection stared back at me, but didn't match. It blinked out of sync, tilted its head the wrong way. Then it stepped back, away from the glass, and disappeared. I ran. Not far, just into the stairwell. The entire building was silent. No humming pipes, no buzzing lights, no neighbors. Just stillness. Then the stairwell mirror, mounted between floors, began to fog, and my reflection came back. But not mine. It smiled, leaned close to the glass, and whispered. Soon. I haven't left the apartment in days. Not because I can't, because I'm afraid to. I've taped over every mirror, bathroom, phone screen, TV, even the blackened toaster slots. But it doesn't matter. The reflections find new ways in. Now I see them in puddles, in windows, even in my own eyes when I glance too long in the dark. The closet door doesn't stay closed anymore. Even nailed shut, I wake to find it ajar, faint blue light bleeding from the cracks. Sometimes the air inside hums. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes I hear someone crying. I tried moving out, packed everything, scheduled the truck. But the night before I left, a letter slid under my door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid, a new one. It showed me, sitting at the kitchen table. Today's clothes. Same bruised eyes. Same hoodie. But I was smiling. Grinning even. Too wide. The mirror from the hidden room was beside me in the photo, and something was crawling out of it. I don't remember taking it. On the back, "You're already home. The truck never arrived." My call log shows the company never existed. When I tried to leave on foot, the stairwell circled endlessly until I ended up outside my own apartment door. I'm not sure the building is real anymore. I get knocks on the front door now, not the closet. But no one's ever there. Just silence. Sometimes I see people through the peephole. Neighbors who moved away, friends I haven't seen in years. But they don't move right. They sway gently. They stare too long. Their mouths don't line up with the things they whisper. Last night, I made a mistake. I answered the door. There was nothing but a hallway of mirrors. And in every one, my reflection looked just a little different. Some had no eyes. Some had no mouth. One waved. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. Time feels warped, like I'm walking in and out of moments that haven't happened yet. Sometimes I hear myself whispering from the other side of the mirror. Sometimes I see other people trapped in the glass. Crying, watching, waiting. The closet's open now. I didn't open it. It just is. The mirror hums louder each night, like a heart gaining strength. I think it's almost ready. Or maybe I am. If you find a hidden room, one that shouldn't be there, don't enter it. If you do, don't look in the mirror. Because once you do, it knows your face. Story 4. The streetlight outside my window turns off when I blink. By you/Midnight Lantern. There's a streetlight outside my apartment window. Nothing special, just one of those old orange sodium vapor ones that hums faintly and flickers sometimes. It's been there for as long as I've lived here, lighting up the cracked sidewalk and half the parking lot with a tired glow. But a few weeks ago, I noticed something strange. It started small. I glance up from my book or my laptop, and the streetlight would be off. Then I'd blink or look away, and it would be back on. I assumed it was faulty wiring, a sensor issue, something the city should have fixed years ago. Then it got worse. Now, whenever I blink, the light responds. Not randomly, not a coincidence. It syncs with me, off when my eyes close, on when they open. I tested it with a mirror, blinked slowly. Every time, without fail, the light went out exactly when my eyes were shut and came back the instant they opened. That alone was weird enough. But then came the figure. The first time I saw it, I thought it was just someone walking by. A blurry silhouette in the orange haze. But it didn't move like a person. It didn't walk so much as shift, like each frame of its movement was a separate photograph. Every time I blinked, it was closer. Step, blink, step, blink, closer, until I shut my eyes for just one full second, and when I opened them, it was standing directly beneath the streetlight, staring up at my window. No face, no features, just tall and still, almost wrong, like it was pretending to be a person and not quite getting it right. I closed the curtain, locked every door, didn't sleep. In the morning, the light was fine again. No flickering, no figure. I thought maybe I dreamt it. Until that night. Same pattern, same blinking. But this time, the figure was already waiting. This time, I didn't blink. I sat perfectly still on the edge of my bed, staring out through the narrow gap in the curtain, barely breathing. The figure stood under the streetlight again, motionless, silhouetted against the amber haze. And even though it was just a shadow, I could feel it watching me. The hum of the light grew louder. I tested it, just a small blink. The light snapped off. When I opened my eyes, it was back on, and the figure hadn't moved. Not a step forward this time. It had tilted its head just slightly, as if in amusement. I turned on every light in my apartment and stayed up all night. By morning, it was gone, but something had changed. During the day, I kept thinking I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. In reflections, in shadows. My coworkers said I looked pale, tired. I didn't tell them what I was seeing. What would I say? There's a man-shaped shadow playing red light/green light with me through a street lamp. I called the city maintenance office and reported the light. They said they'd send someone. No one came. The next night, I sat by the window again. It was waiting. It didn't even try to hide this time. It stood closer than before, just across the narrow sidewalk from my building. Its shape was clearer now. Too thin, arms longer than they should be, fingers that twitched occasionally like they weren't sure how to work. Still no face. I blinked. Gone. Blink. Back again, but closer, inside the fence line now. One hand lightly resting on the pole of the street lamp, as though it owned it. I shut the curtain and taped it closed. No more watching. No more blinking games. I even slept a little, fitfully. But when I woke up and walked into the living room, my heart nearly stopped. The curtain was wide open, and written in the condensation on the inside of the window, 3 words. Stop blinking back. I scrubbed the message off the glass and taped cardboard over the entire window. Thick layers. No more light. No more silhouette. No more games. But I couldn't unsee it. The shape of those letters, written from the inside. That night, I turned off all the lights. Sat in the center of the apartment. No curtains, no blinking. Just darkness. But I could still feel it out there. At 3:09 a.m., every light in the building surged, bright white, buzzing like bees in a jar, then died. Power out. My phone screen refused to light up. My flashlight flickered, then failed. And in that perfect darkness, I blinked. I didn't want to, but my body betrayed me. And I saw it. Not outside. Not behind a cardboard. Not on the street. It was in the room, standing where my TV should be. I didn't move. I didn't even scream. It was still in silhouette, somehow lit by glow that had no source. My eyes burned, trying to keep from closing again. I stared at it, and it stared back. Or at least I felt it staring. Then it took a step. I blinked. It was inches closer. Too close. I collapsed backward, scrabbling into the hallway. Slammed the bathroom door shut and locked it. No windows in there. Just cold tile and my own panic. I stayed in that bathroom for hours. When the lights finally returned, I crept out, trembling. The apartment looked normal, almost eerily so. No sign of it. No footprints. No damage. Just that same cardboard window, now torn down. And on my living room wall, scrawled in something gray and chalky. Blink again. I'm not sure how much longer I can hold out. I've tried eye drops, coffee, stimulants. My eyes are bloodshot, burning. I haven't slept, but I can still feel it. It's waiting for me to close my eyes just a little too long. And I think next time, it won't wait for me to open them. I bought swimming goggles, the clear kind. I taped them to my face and rigged a setup with cotton swabs to prop my eyelids open. It hurts. Every blink now feels like dragging sandpaper across my corneas, but it's working. The light stays on. The figure stays away. At least, that's what I told myself. Last night, I dozed off sitting upright on the floor, arms crossed, goggles still strapped tight. I thought I'd won, but when I woke up, the goggles were gone. Gone. Not on the floor, not on the couch. Nowhere. And someone had drawn eyes on my eyelids in black ink. Wide, cartoonish eyes with long lashes and dilated pupils. My actual eyelids. I scrubbed and scrubbed, but faint traces remained. And the light outside, still flickering, still sinking. The worst part? I think I did blink in my sleep. I think it got in. I found footprints this time. Wet, oily prints leading from the window to the foot of my bed. Long, narrow feet. Toes that ended in sharp, split points. Not human. There was something else too, my clock. It now reads 3:12 a.m. constantly. Even in the afternoon. I bought a new one. Same thing. My phone, 3:12. My microwave, 3:12. Every device with a clock is frozen. Stuck. I can't tell if the rest of the world is moving or if I'm the one who stopped. This evening, I took a photo out the window. I didn't look directly, just lifted the camera and snapped without aiming. When I checked the image, I dropped the phone. It wasn't a photo of the street, or my building, or the sky. It was a photo of the inside of my apartment, from the ceiling, looking down at me. There's no camera up there, no reflection, no way that angle should exist. But it gets worse. I was sleeping in the photo, eyes closed, street light off. I deleted the photo, or thought I did, but every time I open my gallery, it's there again. Same image, me sleeping, street light off. Sometimes it looks slightly different, my arms in another position, or my head tilted a bit more. That's how I realized it's not a photo. It's a live feed. It's watching me sleep. I haven't dared to sleep since. I started nailing boards across the windows, stacking furniture in front of the doors. I bought backup batteries, flashlights, caffeine pills. My eyes feel like they're on fire, constantly watering, but I can't stop. I won't. I can't risk blinking too long. Because now, it doesn't wait outside anymore. It's inside the mirror. At first I thought it was a reflection glitch, just a shadow in the bathroom mirror, maybe a trick of the lighting. But it moves independently. I tested it. I stood still and watched the glass. It twitched. Not much. Just the head. But I wasn't moving and it was. Now, every time I look into the mirror, I see more of it. Its limbs are too long. Its joints bend the wrong way. Its face, it's still blank, but I think that's a mask. A placeholder. A canvas. And it's changing. Mimicking me. The last time I looked, the shape in the mirror had hair, just like mine. It was standing like I stand. Its hands were folded exactly how I fold mine when I'm anxious. But the smile. I've never smiled like that. It pressed its face against the glass, gently. And I heard it inside my head. Let me blink for you. I screamed and covered the mirror with a blanket. I'm starting to wonder if this thing, whatever it is, feeds on attention. Or sleep. Or maybe fear. Maybe all three. I am cracking. I know I am. But every part of me knows, if I blink too long now, I won't be the one who opens my eyes again. I tried leaving again. Not running, just walking out. No box. No phone. I didn't look at the street light. I didn't even blink as I passed it. But the moment I crossed the building's threshold, the world stuttered. It's hard to explain. Like I stepped through the air and landed in the same place. Different light, different hum, same sidewalk. I walked a full block before realizing I was back where I started. Not just location, moment. Time rewound. The birds reset in the sky. My neighbor passed me again. Same nod. Same words. Rough night. I tried again. Ran this time. Eyes wide open. Throat dry. Pushing through people who didn't react. Made it to the subway. Jumped the turnstile. Got onto a train. Every person on board stared straight ahead. No blinking. No phones. All of them completely still, like wax figures set in place. When I blinked once, just once, every head turned toward me at the same time. Their eyes were gone, just smooth skin, and all their mouths opened in unison. We see for you. I don't remember getting back. I just woke up in bed, arms crossed like a corpse, the light outside flickering in rhythm with my pulse. I've boarded every surface now. No light from outside. No meters. Just darkness and aching eyes. I keep trying to stay awake, but I'm losing. I can feel sleep dragging its nails down my spine. Every few seconds, I feel myself start to nod off. And every time, I see a flash of the thing, closer than before. Sitting at my desk, kneeling beside my bed, perched on the ceiling like a bat. It's not trying to get in anymore. It's waiting for me to fall asleep so it can finally slip into my skin, blink my eyes, stretch my smile. So it can live in the light again. I think it's already happening. Earlier today, I looked in the mirror. I didn't mean to. I knocked over a bowl in the kitchen, and a shard of it caught my reflection in the toaster. Just a glimpse. A second. But it was enough. My reflection blinked before I did. It smiled, and I swear I felt it inside my head, like a pressure behind my eyes, pushing forward. Wanting out. The cardboard over the window didn't hold. It peeled away slowly, deliberately, one corner at a time. When I turned around, the streetlight was visible again, still humming, still synced to every time my eyes flutter shut. Except now, even when I force them open, the light sometimes stays off. Like something else is choosing now. Like I'm not in control anymore. I recorded myself sleeping. I didn't want to, but I had to know. I watched the footage. Fast-forwarded through hours. At 3:12 a.m., I rolled onto my back, eyes closed. Then, without waking, my body sat up. Not sleepwalking. Not twitching. Just perfectly still and upright. Eyes still shut. Face blank. And then it smiled. Wide. Wrong. Too many teeth. The body stood. Turned toward the window. Reached out and peeled back the curtain. Looked directly into the streetlight. Still sleeping. Then turned to face the camera. And opened its eyes. They weren't mine. I don't think I'm the one writing this anymore. I haven't blinked in 21 hours. My eyes burn. My thoughts glitch. Sometimes I see my hands move without me. Sometimes I hear myself breathing from across the room. The streetlight stays off now, even when I stare at it. even when I scream. Whatever was out there is inside now. It's learned how to wear me. I think it's only letting me write this as a joke. A goodbye. If you see your lights start to sync with your blinking, run. If you see your reflection move before you, run. If something knocks in the rhythm of your heartbeat, don't answer. Because once it learns your pattern, it knows how to become you. And once it does, you won't know the difference. Story 5. My grandma's music box only plays when someone in the family dies. /shelf of teeth. My grandmother gave me a music box the day she died. I don't mean in her will. I mean literally the day she died, as in she handed it to me in person, eyes dull and tired, and whispered, "It's yours now. You'll hear it when it's time." It was made of dark cherry wood, hand-carved, delicate, and strange. There was no winding mechanism, no switch. Just a small silver crank on the side that didn't turn. The song it played, according to Grandma, was one she'd never heard anywhere else. A haunting little melody that she claimed came from somewhere else entirely. She never elaborated, just gave me that crooked little smile she always wore when telling ghost stories and tapped her wrinkled temple like there were things she couldn't say aloud. When I brought the box home, it sat on my bookshelf for years. Silent, dusty, harmless, until the night Uncle Ray died. I hadn't seen him in years. He lived across the country. But just after 2 a.m., I jolted awake to that tune, distant and eerie, playing from the direction of my bookshelf. The crank turned on its own, slowly, smoothly, and the music that spilled out was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It was wrong, not dissonant, just alien. Notes that lingered too long, gaps that felt like something should fill them, but didn't. The melody looped and looped, never quite the same twice. I couldn't move. I just watched it play until the crank stopped mid-turn. The silence afterward was louder than the song itself. The next morning, I got a call. Uncle Ray had passed in his sleep. Time of death, around 2 a.m. I told myself it was coincidence. A weird dream. Maybe the box had finally loosened up and decided to work. But it happened again. 3 months later, I woke up to the same warbling tune echoing through my room. Only this time it was louder. Closer. The music box had somehow moved from my bookshelf to the nightstand beside my bed. I never moved it. No one else lives with me. At 3:27 a.m., the music stopped. At 7:45 a.m., my mom called in tears. My cousin Eliza had been in a car accident, pronounced dead at 3:27 a.m. That was the moment I stopped believing in coincidence. I tried locking the music box in a drawer, wrapping it in towels, taping the crank down. Nothing worked. When I want to play, it plays. And once it starts, I know what comes next. Death. Always someone in the family. Last week, it played again. That song. That soft, lilting, off-world melody. Only this time it started in the middle of the day, 2:11 p.m. I was working from home, headphones in, and I heard it faintly under my music. I pulled the earbuds out and froze. There it was. Crank turning. Song spinning. I stared at it. "Ooh," I whispered. The box didn't answer. But that evening, no one called. No bad news came. No obituary popped up in the group chat. I even texted relatives to make sure everyone was okay. They were. Every single one. That was 5 days ago. Now the music box won't stop playing. It starts at random intervals. Sometimes in the morning. Sometimes in the middle of the night. Once, it played for 4 straight hours. I smashed it with a hammer. It stayed intact. No cracks, no scratches. I threw it in a river. When I got home, it was sitting on my bed, dry. And now, the tune has changed. It's still the same melody, but slower. Heavier. Almost mournful. And I'm starting to recognize the rhythm. It sounds like a heartbeat. I took it to a pawn shop. Didn't say anything. Just slid it across the counter and asked what it was worth. The guy gave me a strange look, turned it over in his hands, and said, "Is this some kind of antique? There's no keyhole. No spring tension. I'll give you $20, he added, if you swear it doesn't play on its own." I didn't answer. When I left the shop, I felt lighter. Like maybe that was it. Maybe the box would stop tormenting me now. But the next morning, it was on my kitchen table. Same spot where Grandma used to sit during visits. Right in front of her old teacup, still hanging on the mug rack. The crank was mid-turn, ticking back and forth like it couldn't decide if it should play or not. I screamed at it. "What do you want from me?" It played 2 notes, then stopped. Later that night, I checked my phone. A voicemail from an unknown number. When I played it back, all I heard was the music box melody. Clear as day, like it had been recorded inches from the mic. I blocked the number. It called again. Same tune. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. The tune was in my head now. Earworms so deep that I swear I can hum every note. But the more I hum it, the more I feel sick. Not physically. Something else. Like I'm being unraveled. I had a nightmare. I was standing in a cemetery. Everyone I've ever known was there, silent, staring at me. Rows of graves stretched endlessly behind them. The only sound was the music box playing, coming from beneath the dirt. One by one, they began to hum along, and then they all pointed behind me. I turned around. There was a fresh grave, with my name on it. I haven't touched the box in days, but it moves on its own. Every morning, it's somewhere new. My kitchen table, my pillow. Once I found it balanced on the bathroom sink, crank already half turned. And every time, the song's a little clearer. Not just louder, sharper, more vivid. It sounds like it's right next to my ear, even when I'm in another room. And now, I think I hear words beneath the melody. Whispers, faint and slow, like a child mumbling through a lullaby. I recorded it last night, played it back at half speed. The voice said, "You are the last." I don't know what that means. My family's not that small. I still have an aunt, cousins, a younger sister in college. But none of them are picking up the phone. Texts go unanswered. I drove to my aunt's house this morning, 3 hours away. When I got there, the place was empty. Locked. Curtains drawn. No mail on the stoop. But the front door wasn't latched. Just gently pressed shut. Inside, every mirror had been covered with bed sheets. Every clock had stopped at 3:19 a.m. On the dining table, one item. The same music box. Identical to mine. Same grain. Same crank. Same faint scratches near the edge like tiny fingernails had scraped it. Except this one was open. And inside was a photo. A candid shot of me, sleeping. It wasn't a photo I'd ever taken. It wasn't one anyone should have taken. The angle was from the ceiling, right above my bed. I ran out of there and drove straight home. But when I walked in, my music box was gone. Now I have 2, and they're both playing. In harmony. They won't stop. The 2 boxes take turns. One playing while the other wins itself, then switching like they're breathing in rhythm. I've hidden them in drawers, wrapped them in towels, even buried one in the backyard. But every time I check, they're back on the mantle, side by side. The worst part is what they're playing now. It's the same melody, but something's layered under it. A low thudding beat, soft at first, then louder. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. Then I held my hand to my chest. The beat matches my heartbeat. Perfectly. Every night, they play slower. And my heart slows with them. I went to the ER yesterday. Told them I felt off, like my pulse was dragging. They checked everything. "You're perfectly healthy," they said. But the nurse gave me a strange look, asked if I'd recently been in some kind of trauma. "You're pale, sluggish, elite," said I was just tired. That night, I recorded them again. The whispers are louder now. I ran it through noise filtering software and caught snippets. He was warned. It comes for the last one. Open the lid. I haven't dared to open either box. The lids move sometimes, just a crack. Enough to suggest something inside is breathing. Like it's waiting for permission. Then came today. I got a package on my doorstep. No return label. Inside, a 3rd music box. This one covered in deep red lacquer, almost black. Ornate carvings spiraled along the edges, and the crank was missing altogether. It started playing as soon as I looked at it. And this time, the whisper wasn't faint. It was clear, and it came from inside my own head. "This one's for you. I didn't sleep last night. I sat in my living room, eyes locked on the 3 boxes. They weren't playing anymore, not audibly, but I felt them. Each pulsed faintly, a soft vibration through the floorboards, like distant thunder. My heart kept sinking with them, speeding up when they surged, slowing when they settled. I tried listening with my eyes closed, but the moment I did, I felt something move closer. I jolted awake on the floor around dawn. All 3 boxes were open, and all 3 held photographs. One of me sleeping, again. One of my sister, taken in her college dorm room. One of my grandmother, much younger, sitting in the same rocking chair I now keep in my hallway. All the photos had one detail in common: a small black shape reflected in a nearby mirror. Tall, thin, watching. It was never the focus of the photo. Just there, like a forgotten shadow. I finally cracked and drove to my sister's campus. Her dorm room was locked. Her RA hadn't seen her in days. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I called our aunt again. Still no answer. I sat in my car in the parking lot. Music box balanced on my lap like it might leap off and bolt if I let go. The red one. It was warm to the touch. I opened it. No melody, just static. And a voice, layered inside it, whispering over and over. One must hold the song. One must take the tune. One must be the box. It's not a metaphor, not a riddle. It's a contract. Grandma gave me the box when she died. It wasn't a gift. It was a passing of burden, of containment, of the thing inside it. And now, the burden is mine, unless I give it to someone else. I tried giving it away. I really did. I wrapped the red box in 3 layers of cloth, sealed it in a cardboard shipping crate, and mailed it to a P.O. box I found online. No name, no return address. It came back the next morning, sitting on my doorstep, unopened. No postie marks. The other 2 boxes were waiting beside it, all 3 aligned, facing my door like they were listening. The song began before I even touched the doorknob. I froze. This time, they played together, harmonized. Layered melodies echoing through the walls like a funeral procession made of clockwork and string. And I heard her voice. Grandma. Not as I remembered it. Older, slower, familiar but young. Clear. She was singing the tune, humming it. Her voice filled the apartment as the boxes turned. And she said, I held it for 80 years. Someone always must. Then came another voice. Not hers. Deeper. Hollow. Cold enough to fog the windows. If not past, it chooses. I tried to run, grabbed the boxes, shoved them into my trunk, and drove hours out of town. I stopped at a gas station off a dead highway, opened the trunk, gone. When I turned back toward my car, they were on the passenger seat. Open. Waiting. I didn't go home. I stayed in a motel. Tried to drown the melody with the TV on full volume, both pillows pressed to my ears. Still heard it. Still felt it. And now, my reflection isn't syncing up with me anymore. Sometimes I catch it blinking too slow, or tilting its head a second too late. I think it's learning to play the song without the box. And once it does, there won't be a need for me. Tonight, the red box opened by itself. No crank, no trigger, no sound, just silence, thick and pressing, like the moment before thunder. Inside, I saw a mirror. Not a photo, not a mechanism, just my own reflection staring up at me. But it didn't move when I did. It smiled first, and now the melody's playing again, but from inside my chest. The boxes are quiet. They've passed their song, and I finally understand. The music never warned of death. It made room for it. Story 6. The House That Wasn't on the Map. Bayou/Fog-Bitten Tuesdays. I was on a road trip when I first saw the house. Miles off Route 19, just past the county line where GPS starts to flicker and cell signal gives up. I've been driving for hours, chasing an old family legend my grandfather used to tell. A house that appeared to certain people when they were alone, lost, or at the edge of something inside themselves. People don't find the house, he said once. It finds them. At the time, I thought it was just a spooky story meant to keep kids from wandering too far. But 2 weeks after he died, I found a map in his things, hand-drawn, yellowed with age, marked with a tiny ink square in the middle of an otherwise blank forest. No town nearby, no highway, just that little black square labeled, in tiny script. Us. I had time. I had gas. I was grieving and restless, so I went. The road was barely that, just packed dirt narrowing into tree-lined shadows. No signs. No fence. I passed a rusted mailbox with no number. Then, without realizing it, I was parked. I don't remember stopping the car. The house sat 30 yards in, behind crooked pine trees. 2 stories. Wide porch. Faded gray shutters. No lights. It looked blank, like someone had sketched it hastily and forgot to fill in the details. But somehow, it felt like it was watching me. I got out, camera in hand. I wanted proof. But as I stepped closer, I felt a shift, a strange stillness. No wind, no insects, not even birdsong. It was like the world was holding its breath. I took a photo of the porch. The camera clicked. I looked at the screen. Nothing. Just black. Confused, I checked the lens. Clean. Took another shot. Still black. Then a creak. From the house. The front door had opened slightly, as if inviting me in. I should have left. Every instinct screamed it. But grief is louder than instinct. I stepped inside, and the door shut behind me. The door didn't slam or creak. It just closed. Quietly. Like it had always meant to. I stood in the foyer, swallowed by dimness. There were no working lights, but somehow I could still see. A gray, washed-out kind of light filtered in from unseen windows, casting long, shapeless shadows. The walls were peeling beige. The wallpaper was floral, faded, and half-torn, like it had been forgotten mid-renovation 50 years ago. Everything inside looked familiar. Not like I'd been there before. More like it had been copied from bits of old memory. The hallway to the left reminded me of my childhood home. The staircase's carved banister looked exactly like the one in my aunt's house in Illinois. Even the smell, dust, and lemon polish felt eerily personal. I called out, "Hello." My voice sounded small, absorbed. The house didn't answer. I took cautious steps deeper in, passing a sitting room with furniture covered in yellowed sheets. I noticed something strange. There were no light switches. Just smooth wall where I expected one to be. On an impulse, I peeled back the sheet covering an old armchair. Beneath it was velvet, green, the exact kind my grandfather's favorite chair had been. I ran my fingers across it. It felt real, not dusty or brittle. Then I heard the music. Faint, distant, piano. I followed it down a hallway that lengthened the farther I walked. I swear I only passed 2 doors, but when I looked back, the corridor stretched much longer than it should have. The music grew louder, slow, melancholy notes played by unsure fingers. It stopped and started like someone was learning. At the end of the hallway, I found the source, a room with a grand piano. The lid was open. The keys moved. No one sat at the bench. I froze. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then a photograph fell from the piano top, fluttered like a leaf. I bent and picked it up. It was a picture of me as a child, sitting on my grandfather's lap. Only, I don't remember the moment it showed. The background wasn't our home. It was this room. The same faded carpet. The same curtains. A date was scrawled on the back. July 14th, 1999. I turned the photo over again. Now, there was someone standing behind us in the picture. Someone I didn't recognize. I dropped the photo. My hands were shaking. The figure in it, whoever they were, was tall, dressed in black, their face blurred like it had been erased by thumb smudges. But it wasn't damage. The blur had depth, like the face had been swallowed by the paper itself. I backed away from the piano. The music had stopped. The keys no longer moved, but the lid began to close on its own, slow and steady until it clicked shut with a soft finality. I turned back toward the hallway, but the door I came through was gone. Just smooth wall now. I ran. The house shifted with me. Every corner I turned brought me back to the piano room. Every time, I tried the opposite direction. Same result. I even scratched a mark on the wall with my keys. The mark stayed, but the hall behind it changed shape, grew darker. Eventually, I gave up and sat on the piano bench. That's when I noticed the second photograph. Tucked under the keys, folded twice. Another photo of me, older this time, present day, standing at the edge of the woods outside this house. Mouth open, fear in my eyes. The angle was from above. I hadn't taken it. I didn't even know it existed. Scrawled on the back in the same handwriting. You came back. Back? I'd never been here. Unless Grandpa had. And I'd followed. I took out the map he left me, the one with the little black square. As I unfolded it, I realized something was off. The square had grown. It bled across the paper like spilled ink, branching into veins that stretched through towns, roads, counties. At the center of the ink blot, a word I hadn't seen before. Inheritance. The piano struck a single note behind me. Spoon. No one. But on the keys now sat a new item. A key. Old brass, ornate. warm to the touch. Attached to it was a tag. For the attic. I hadn't seen a staircase leading up. Until now. At the edge of the room, a narrow door had appeared in the wallpaper. Partially open. A staircase curled into darkness beyond it. I didn't want to go, but I knew I would. I think I always had. The attic stairs were steep and narrow, the wood beneath my feet groaning with each step like it hadn't been touched in decades. The air grew colder as I climbed, and thick with something musty. Mothballs, rotting paper, something older than dust. I tried not to breathe too deeply. At the top was a door. The key turned easily, smoother than it should have. When I pushed it open, the room inside felt impossibly large, far bigger than the second story of the house could have allowed. The walls slanted inward with the roof, covered in dozens of framed photographs. Each one was black and white, faded to sepia, and eerily silent. They were all family photos. Mine, generations of them. My great-grandparents, my dad as a child, my mother at her wedding. Some I recognized from albums, but many I had never seen before. And some weren't right. Like the expressions were just off. Faces a little too still, a little too knowing. Eyes that seemed to follow. One photo stopped me cold. It was me. Not a child, not recent. Me right now in the attic, standing where I stood. In the picture, I was looking at the very photo I now held. I blinked and looked around. There was a soft rustle behind me. A man stood in the corner. Thin, motionless, dressed in black. No face, just smooth, flat skin where features should be. His head tilted slightly, like a curious animal. He didn't move, didn't speak, but in the instant I saw him, I remembered him. He'd been in dreams, in background shadows of childhood memories. Never the focus, but always present. A shape just out of reach. Grandpa used to call him the one who watches the keepers. I turned back to the wall. A new photo had appeared. It was the man, standing behind Grandpa in his hospital bed, one hand gently resting on his shoulder. Grandpa was smiling, eyes closed, peaceful. Another appeared beside it. The man again, behind me this time. Not in this attic, but in my apartment. I recognized the peeling paint. The kitchen chair. I was slouched forward, asleep or unconscious. The man's fingers were inches from the back of my neck. I stumbled back, knocking over a frame. When it hit the floor, the glass didn't shatter. It melted into the boards, the image smearing like wet ink. The man was gone from the photo, from all of them. And then I heard Grandpa's voice. Not a recording, not memory. Clear, real. You came too soon. The attic door slammed shut behind me. I spun toward the door, heart pounding, but it was gone. Not closed, gone. Just a blank wall where it had been seconds before. The attic was sealed. The temperature dropped sharply. Frost bloomed across the photo frames, crawling in delicate lines like veins through glass. My breath puffed visibly in front of me. Then the whispering started. It came from everywhere, from behind the walls, from under the floorboards, from inside my own skull. Hundreds of overlapping voices, like memories being whispered backwards. I cover my ears, but the sound didn't stop. It wasn't sound. It was thought. You were never supposed to come. You were always meant to come. Contradictions, layered atop one another. I staggered toward the center of the attic, where a trapdoor had formed on the floor. It hadn't been there before. The handle was iron, rusted, warm to the touch. I pulled it open. A ladder descended into pure darkness. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this house had more beneath it than any foundation. I climbed down. The descent took longer than it should have. Minutes passed, then hours. There was no end. The further I went, the less I felt gravity, the more it felt like falling up into something else. When I finally reached the bottom, I was no longer in a basement. I was in a room that resembled a church, or a theater. Pews lined the walls, all facing a large wooden chair at the center, high-backed, carved with spirals, impossible geometry that made my eyes hurt to look at. And sitting in that chair was Grandpa, not as I remembered him before he passed, but younger, stronger, smiling. He raised a hand and gestured for me to come closer. "Sit," he said. "It has to be you now." "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked at me gently, then behind me. "They're watching. They always watch. But one of us has to stay." I turned and saw the pews were full, with people I recognized. Ancestors. Family. All the way back. They sat in silence, eyes closed, skin like porcelain, unmoving, except for one figure in the back. The faceless man. Still. Waiting. I looked at Grandpa. He was fading. Skin turning to paper. Hands sinking into the arms of the chair. "If you don't sit," he whispered, "the house goes with you. Everywhere." I didn't sit. I ran. I turned and bolted toward the pews, hoping there might be another way out. A hallway. A stair. Anything. My feet echoed across the wood, but the moment I passed the first row of silent watchers, the room shifted. The pews stretched endlessly, like a mirror held to itself. Row after row, repeating, multiplying. I glanced behind me. The chair was still there, and so was Grandpa, frozen in that moment of mid-fade, as if the house itself was waiting for my decision to proceed. I turned left instead of forward. Suddenly, I was in a hallway. Not the same one from before. This one was hospital white, linoleum floors, flickering fluorescence overhead, with doors on either side labeled with names. My family's names. Some doors were open. Inside them, I saw still images, tableaus of moments from their lives. My mother washing dishes while humming softly. My father staring into a mirror, expression vacant. My sister playing piano, crying. All perfectly still, as though paused mid-action. Then came the door with my name. I hesitated. Behind me, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. I opened the door. Inside, it wasn't a room. It was a forest. The one outside the house. Night dark, lit only by the dim gray light that always seemed to cling to this place. In the center of the clearing was the house. A miniature version, maybe 3 feet tall, carved from blackwood. The front door of the tiny house creaked open. Inside was a chair, just like before. I reached toward it, and the forest collapsed inward like paper folding into itself. I was suddenly back in the attic, on the floor, gasping. The door was there again, this time open. I ran through it, down the stairs, out into the hallway, past the piano room. Everything blurred. The photos on the wall shifted as I passed. New ones forming, decaying in real time. One showed me screaming. Another showed me aged, sitting in a high-back chair. Another showed nothing. Just the house, empty. When I reached the front door, it opened before I touched it. I sprinted through, straight into the woods. The house didn't follow, but the music did. That same piano melody, warping as I moved. Slower, deeper, not coming from behind me anymore, but inside me. In my chest like a heartbeat. I reached my car. It was exactly where I didn't leave it. Keys in the ignition. The back seat held something wrapped in velvet. A music box. And a note. You didn't sit, but you took it with you. I drove without thinking. Back to the highway. Back to towns with names. Back to sell signal and reality. But I didn't feel safe. Not even close. The music box didn't play out loud. Not exactly. It didn't need to. I could feel it. Every mile I put between me and the house. The melody inside grew sharper, clearer. Not just in my chest now, but in my dreams. The first night back home, I dreamed I was back in that chair. The high-backed one in the basement chamber. Only this time, I wasn't looking at Grandpa. I was looking at myself. A mirror version of me sat across the room, wearing my clothes, blinking out of sync. I woke up gasping and found a music box sitting on my pillow. I'd locked it in the glove compartment. Since then, it's always near. On my coffee table. On the kitchen counter. Once I found it inside my fridge. I haven't opened it. I don't need to. I know what's inside. The house. Not a model. Not a memory. The concept of the house. A portable gate. A seed. I've been dreaming of other places too. Empty fields where doors rise from the dirt like gravestones. Motel rooms where the wallpaper shifts when you blink. Crowded buses where no one has a face. And in every one of them, the music box is there. People around me have started acting strangely. My neighbor, who never spoke to me, now smiles too long. My barista wrote, "Welcome back," on my cup, though I never told her I'd been away. My boss asked if I felt like myself yet. I never said I didn't. I'm starting to see things in reflections, shapes that don't belong. The man from the attic, the one with no face. He watches me through screens now. Phone, laptop, even a microwave door. Sometimes I see him on the street, but only in windows, never with my eyes directly. And every night, just before sleep, I hear Grandpa's voice. Someone has to hold it, he whispers. Someone always must. I don't think I was supposed to leave. Not without replacing myself. Not without sitting in the chair. Now the house wants to grow, and it's using me. Last night, the music box opened. Not by my hand. Not by accident. It turned its crank on its own. And now, the house is here. Not the whole thing. Just its outline. Framing my walls. Stretching shadows where there shouldn't be any. Every door in my apartment now leads to that piano room. The fridge hums in that same warped melody. I think it's nearly done growing. I think I'm becoming it. So if you ever find a small house in the woods that isn't on the map, don't go inside. Because if you do, and you don't sit, it'll need someone else to carry it home. Story 7. Every night at 3:33 a.m., my doorbell rings. No one is ever there. Bayou/Nickel Knives. It started 3 weeks ago. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my doorbell ringing. Not a knock, a ring, crisp and clear. I live alone in a duplex at the edge of a sleepy neighborhood. Too quiet for pranksters, too boring for anything truly strange. I check my phone. 3:33 a.m. When I got to the door, no one was there. No footsteps retreating. No engine revving down the street. Just silence and cool air pressing against my bare skin as I opened the door to nothing. I chalked it up to a fluke. The next night, it happened again. Same time, 3:33. This time I waited. I sat in the dark with the hallway light off, watching the little white button beside my door. And right on cue, ding dong, I flung the door open. Again, no one. The street was dead. No movement. No wind. Just that hollow feeling in your stomach when you realize something is wrong, but can't explain why. By the 5th night, it felt like routine. The bell, the emptiness, the cold pit in my gut. I even checked my security cam. It had been working fine for months, until now. Every night at exactly 3:33 a.m., the feed cut out for 14 seconds. Exactly 14. Then it snapped back on. I watched those blank clips over and over, trying to find something. Even a flicker. But it was just blackness. Like the lens had been swallowed. On the 6th night, I didn't go to the door. I stayed in bed. Listened. The bell rang. Once. Then twice. Then silence. But I didn't hear footsteps. I heard breathing. Right outside my bedroom window. Heavy, raspy breathing like someone had run a long way and finally stopped to catch their breath. I live on the 2nd floor. There's no balcony. No lei. Nothing. Still, I heard it. Close. I stayed under the covers like a child, too scared to look. In the morning, I checked the window. Nothing there, except for a long, curved smudge on the glass, like a nose pressed against it. After the window incident, I bought salt. A dumb move, I know, but I've been spiraling through message boards, late-night subreddits, and cleansing rituals for beginners. Someone said salt lines stop spirits. Another claimed it kept uninvited things out. So I poured a line of salt across every windowsill, every door frame, even the vents. I didn't sleep that night. 3:33 a.m. came. The doorbell rang. Once. Twice. Then 5 rapid rings. I stayed seated on the floor of the hallway, holding a knife and watching the front door like it might implode. No breathing this time. No window smudge. But when I checked the peephole, there was someone there. Not a person. At least, not in the normal sense. It looked like a man, but impossibly tall. Its head brushed the top of the frame. It wore a coat too long and too thin, like melted shadow draped over bones. Its face wasn't. Just smooth, featureless flesh where a face should have been. But somehow, it was looking right at me. I blinked and it was gone. Vanished. I checked the camera footage again. 14 seconds of static. Exact same as before. But this time, the video resumed not at 3:34, but at 3:35. 2 whole minutes were missing. And when I looked closer, frame by frame, I noticed something new. A tall blur at the edge of the frame. Standing still. Then 1 frame later, closer, and then again, and again, until the final visible frame, where it stood right in front of the camera. but there was no face, just that stretched flesh. I stayed up the next few nights. Coffee, Red Bull, more knives. Each night, same thing. Doorbell at 3:33. A shadow outside the peephole. No footsteps, no running away, just a presence. On night 10, the bell didn't ring. I thought maybe it was over. Then my phone vibrated. A video message from an unknown number. It was a live feed of my front door from the outside, and in it I saw myself, standing motionless in the dark hallway, staring through the peephole. But I don't remember moving. I was still in bed. I watched the clip over and over, and in every version, I slowly turned to face the camera and smiled. After that video, I started noticing things around the apartment that didn't belong. First, the mirror. The one in my hallway, standard IKEA rectangle. I was brushing my teeth when I glanced toward it, and for half a second, I saw myself just standing there. Not brushing, not blinking, just still. When I turned, there was no one. But when I looked back, the reflection was delayed by half a second. I tested it, waved my arm. The reflection followed, always just behind. That same night, 3:33 came. No doorbell. Instead, knocking. 3 knocks. Then nothing. Then 3 more. Rhythmic. I crept to the door, looked through the peephole. The hallway was pitch black. Not dim, not shadowed, just blackness, like the hall had been swallowed. The knocking came again, but not from the door this time, from inside the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster and heard whispering. My name, over and over, in my own voice. Let me in, let me in, let me in. I didn't sleep. I unplugged the TV, turned off every screen, avoided all reflections. But they found new ways. The next day, I went to a diner across town. Tried to be around people. Noise. Light. I sat in a booth by the window, ordered coffee, and waited for the wait to lift. It didn't. Instead, I noticed someone across the diner. Man in a hoodie, facing away. When he finally turned, I saw his face. My face, but wrong. Lips too wide, eyes too empty, skin too pale. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Then he smiled, and without getting up, without making a sound, he raised one hand and pointed directly at me. I bolted. Back home, the apartment felt wrong. The layout seemed off. My bookshelf was taller. The sink had 2 knobs instead of 1. I checked my phone. The time was 3:33 in the afternoon, but the doorbell rang anyway. I didn't answer it. Instead, I looked out the peephole. Nothing. But on the other side of the door, I heard breathing. Not heavy, not strained, just impatient, like it was waiting for something, or someone, like it knew I was watching. That afternoon changed everything. I used to think 3:33 a.m. was the window, the only time it could come. But that afternoon proved something worse. The time didn't matter anymore. The door did. I stopped sleeping entirely after that. I taped over every mirror in my apartment, blocked out the windows, removed my TV, covered my phone with aluminum foil like some paranoid bunker freak. I didn't care. It was always watching. I moved a chair in front of the door and sat, knife in one hand, flashlight in the other. I don't even remember falling asleep, but I woke up at 3:33 a.m. with the flashlight off and my hand empty. The knife was gone. The door was open. Not wide, just cracked, but enough. I sat frozen, heart hammering, watching the gap. No wind, no movement. And then something slid into view. A hand, pale, with too many knuckles. Fingers dragging across the floor like it was trying to feel the wood. I wanted to scream, move, slam the door shut. Instead, I whispered, go away. The hand paused, then curled into a fist. Knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. The same pattern. And then it retreated. The door shut itself, inch by inch. And the moment the latch clicked, I heard my own voice from the other side whisper, wrong door. I don't know what that meant. Not until I checked the apartment again. The back room, the one I used for storage, wasn't right. The door had been closed for weeks. But now it hung open. And beyond it, a hallway. Not mine. Old wood. Wallpaper curling from the corners. Dim yellow light like an oil lamp glowing from somewhere deep inside. I should have run. Should have called someone. But the hallway felt familiar. Like something from a forgotten dream. I stepped in. The door closed behind me. And I swear, I heard the sound of a doorbell. From the other side, the hallway stretched longer than it should have. I turned back, expecting to see my storage room behind me, but the door was gone. Just more hallway. Faint creaking echoed ahead, like footsteps walking slowly away from me. I followed. The wallpaper was damp in places, peeling back to reveal what beneath that pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Occasionally, I'd pass a door on either side. Each was slightly ajar. Behind the first was a kitchen that looked exactly like the one in my childhood home, down to the chipped mug I broke when I was 7. But something sat at the table, still, watching. I closed the door without looking closer. Behind the second, my old dorm room. Bunk bed, crumpled ramen wrappers. My desk chair spun once when I opened the door, like it had just been used. The hallway was showing me places I'd lived. But each room had something wrong. Off-color lighting. Strange shadows that didn't belong. A bathroom had my reflection in the mirror, but smiling, even though I wasn't. Eventually, the hallway led to a stairwell. Narrow, steep, going down into darkness. I hesitated at the top. Then I heard it. Ding-dong. The doorbell. From below. I descended, flashlight raised. The air grew colder. The stairs warped beneath my feet. At the bottom, I found a single door. My current apartment door. From the outside, I stood in front of it, breathing heavy, flashlight trembling in my grip. And then it hit me, this was what it had been seeing. Every night, this was its side of the door. I reached out, hand shaking, and rang the bell. Ding-dong. The sound echoed into the hallway above me. I stepped back and watched, heart pounding, as someone approached the other side. The peephole lit up, and I saw me. Not through the hole. Not an image. Not a trick. It was me on the other side of the door, looking back through it. Pale, tired, eyes empty. He raised a hand. So did I, mirroring. And then he reached for the lock. I turned and ran, back up the stairs, through the impossible hallway. Doors slammed behind me as I passed, one after the other. I heard my name whispered in dozens of different voices. My voice, my mother's, strangers. The hall twisted, shrunk, expanded. And finally, I burst back into my apartment. Panting, my door was shut, but the bell rang again. I stopped answering. For 3 nights, I let the doorbell ring at 3:33. Sometimes once, sometimes 5 times. Always precise, always patient. The hallway was normal again. The storage room back to its usual clutter. But I knew better. I boarded up the front door, hammered plywood across it, bolted the windows. Didn't matter. Night 4, I heard it again. Not the bell, not knocking, walking. Inside my apartment, slow footsteps creaking across the living room floor. I stayed locked in the bathroom, knife in hand, heart thudding so loudly I thought I might pass out. The steps stopped right outside the door. No voice, no scratching, just stillness. Then the doorknob twitched. Once, twice, then nothing. Morning came. I checked the cameras, gone. No feet. Nothing recorded since I rang the doorbell from the other side. But I did find something new. A voicemail on my phone. I never heard it ring. When I played the message, all I heard was static, then my own voice whispering. Let me in. I dropped the phone. It shattered. That night I left. Didn't pack. Didn't think. Just ran. Got in my car. Drove 3 hours north. Booked a motel room under a fake name. Felt safer for a moment. Until I woke at 3:33 to a knock on the motel room door. I didn't move, barely breathed. Then the second knock came, followed by a bell. Not the motel doorbell, mine. My apartment's doorbell. The sound played from inside the room. I turned slowly and saw my front door standing in the middle of the motel wall. No fram, no hindis. Just there, exactly as it was before I boarded it. Same chip paint. Same warm mat. The peephole glinted. I walked to it, because what else do you do when the impossible sits in front of you and calls your name? I looked through, and on the other side, myself, grinning, but the eyes wrong, too wide, too hollow, and behind him, a dozen more, all me, all slightly off, all waiting. I staggered back from the peephole. My motel room, the walls, the furniture, even the bed, started to ripple like I was underwater. I blinked, tried to reset reality, but everything stayed soft and warped. The front door, the original one, stood like a monolith, humming with low, electrical energy. Something pounded from the other side, not knocking anymore, slamming. With every hit, dust shook from the ceiling. I backed into the motel bathroom, shut the door, locked it like that would matter. Then the light bulb flickered and popped, plunging me into darkness. I sat on the floor and covered my ears. But the sound came anyway, a whisper through the drain. You already opened it. You don't remember, but you did. Images flashed behind my eyes. Me opening the door in a dream. Me smiling. Me reaching out to something waiting just beyond the frame. I had let myself in, and now the rest were coming through. By dawn, the motel room had returned to normal. The door was gone, just stained wallpaper in its place. But I knew they were still here, waiting. I drove home. It felt insane, but I didn't know what else to do. Everything was circling back to where it started. The apartment was untouched, still boarded up, still dark. But something had changed. On my kitchen table, arranged neatly, were photographs. Dozens of them, all of me, in places I've never been, smiling with people I've never met. In one, I'm sitting at a birthday party, surrounded by strangers who all look like slightly broken versions of me. Wrong teeth, missing fingers, flat eyes. On the back of that one was a single sentence. You belong to us now. That night, I sat in the hallway, flashlight dead, phone off, just waiting. At 3:33, there was no knock, no ring. Instead, my back door opened. I don't even have a back door. It creaked open slowly, revealing not my backyard, but a long black corridor. At the end of it stood one of them, one of the other me's. He raised his hand, and I understood. This wasn't about being haunted. This was a replacement. They weren't trying to scare me. They were trying to wear me, and I was running out of time. Last night, I stayed awake until 3:33 again. I didn't hear the bell, didn't hear a knock. Instead, I woke up at 3:34, standing at my front door, hand on the knob. I don't remember getting there, and I wasn't alone. Reflected in the glass, I saw another me, smiling, behind my eyes. So if you ever hear a doorbell at exactly 3:33 a.m., don't open it, even if it sounds like you're the one on the other side. Especially then, because some doors don't open out. They open in. Story 8. I answered a job listing that only appeared at midnight. Bayou/paper vanishes. I didn't even remember applying. The email subject read, interview confirmed, 12 a.m. sharp. No company name, just coordinates. At first I thought it was spam, but when I opened the attachment, it showed a picture of me, taken that night. At my desk, in my apartment. I hadn't taken it. The screen had a timestamp of 11:59 p.m. Chalk it up to desperation, I guess. I'd been unemployed for months. Rent was overdue. I'd applied to so many places that maybe I'd clicked one too many I'm interested buttons and forgotten. So I went. The coordinates led to a squat, concrete building downtown I'd never noticed before. No sign, just a flickering red light over a single steel door. The moment I stepped inside, my phone died. Not powered down, blank. I pocketed it and moved forward. The hallway stretched in both directions, lit by buzzing fluorescents. It smelled like iron and antiseptic. Before I could choose a path, a voice echoed behind me. This way. I turned. No one, but one hallway light dimmed slightly, like it had exhaled. I followed. The corridor bent slightly, like the architecture had forgotten what straight was. I reached a waiting area, metal bench, blank walls, a single door with a slit window. Inside, a woman in a gray suit sat at a table. She didn't look up as I entered. Sit, she said. No greeting. No name. Just a file folder in front of her, thick and worn at the edges. It had my name on the tab. Not just my first and last. My full name. Middle. Suffix. Even the one I legally dropped years ago. Let's begin, she said. She never asked me about my resume. Instead, she opened the folder to the first page. Tell me about your dream last Thursday. My stomach dropped, because I had a dream that night, one I hadn't told anyone about. In it, I was walking through a burning house, trying to rescue someone I couldn't see. How did you know that? I whispered. She flipped the page. Tell me why you cried during lunch on May 14th, 2013. I hadn't even remembered that myself. Not until she said it. Then I did. Every detail. The interview didn't feel like an interview. It felt like an interrogation of my soul, one I'd never agreed to. The woman never blinked. Her voice remained calm, steady, like she was reciting facts, not asking questions. She knew things she couldn't have known. Pages in the folder included photographs I'd never seen. Me sitting on a swing at age 6, crying in the rain. Me staring at a ceiling in a hospital bed I barely remembered. There was even one of me sleeping. Last night, I asked her what company this was. She smiled. Not kindly, just knowingly. We process applicants. For what? I asked. She closed the folder. That depends. Would you describe yourself as compliant? I don't. What does that mean? Another smile. Then no. The lights above flickered. A low hum filled the room. Not quite a noise. More like pressure behind the ears. I think I want to leave, I said. You're already hired, she replied. The door opened behind me. Not the one I'd come through. A new one. Cold air spilled in. Beyond it was darkness, and something waiting inside it. Tall, still, breathing. The woman stood, finally, and pushed the folder across the table. You may decline, but declining carries penalties. What penalties? I asked, standing slowly. She didn't answer. I backed toward the door I came in through. It was gone. The wall was seamless. Only the open door and the figure in the dark remained. And then I heard my own voice from the hallway. Congratulations on your new position. I turned toward it. The hallway was empty. But when I turned back to the woman, she was gone. Only the folder remained, and a nameplate I hadn't seen before. It didn't say her name. It said mine. The lights buzzed louder. The open door pulsed. The figure stepped forward just slightly. Enough for me to see its outline. It had my shape, my height, my posture, but not my face. The skin where it should have been was covered in shifting words. Paragraphs. Interview questions. Résumé lines. It whispered, begin training. I ran, not into the room with the shadow, but down the corridor, any corridor. The hallway bent and curved like intestines. Doors passed on either side, unlabeled, some pulsing faintly like heartbeats. Behind me, I could hear footsteps, not running, just pacing, steady, following. The folder was still clutched in my hand. I didn't remember picking it up. I reached a stairwell, spiraling downward into impossible geometry, each level a different material. Concrete, wood, rusted metal. At one point, I swore I stepped on flesh. Finally, I emerged into a large, open space. Rows of cubicles stretched beyond sight. Each cubicle was occupied, each person identical. Not similar, identical. Clones of the same man, typing endlessly. Their screens blinked with documents written in dead languages. Their eyes didn't blink. As I passed, they spoke in unison. Congratulations on your advancement. I dropped the folder and backed away. From one cubicle, the man stood. He was me, down to the freckle on my chin. He looked at me with that same hollow smile and handed me a badge. It read, Applicant 033, status in progress. I screamed. No one flinched. Then the lights shifted. Everything went red. Sirens didn't blare. They breathed. Like lungs exhaling alarm. The clones began to chant. Non-compliant. 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 I ran again, stumbling over file boxes and spindly chairs. I passed a room with a glass wall. Inside, someone was watching surveillance footage. Dozens of screens. All of me. Different versions. Different outcomes. One showed me sitting in a therapy session. One dead in a car crash. One screaming at a birthday party. But none of them looked at peace. The man at the console turned. It was me again, but older, tired, smiling with resignation. You should have stayed, he said. You were lucky to be chosen. I didn't ask to be. I yelled. He shrugged. None of US did. But someone has to keep the machine running. What machine? He opened his mouth, but instead of words, paper fluttered out. Sheets with my handwriting, interview answers, journal entries, thoughts I'd never written down. I turned and fled once more. I burst through a door that wasn't there before and found myself in a hallway made of filing cabinets, stacked high, infinite, humming quietly. The drawers opened and closed on their own. From each one, scraps of paper fluttered out and drifted toward me. I caught a few, They weren't resumes. They were memories. Not just mine. A girl writing poetry in a gas station notebook. A boy watching his parents fight over a broken glass. An old man coughing blood onto a handkerchief embroidered with the letter D. Each one vivid, pulsing with emotional static. The papers clung to my arms, my legs. Some tried to slide beneath my skin. I tore them off and ran. I reached a circular room lined with doors. 12 in total. Each one labeled in a language I didn't recognize, except one. Review. I stepped through. The room was white, blinding. In the center stood a desk, and behind it, the woman from the interview. But this time, her suit wasn't gray. It was made entirely of moving text. Thin black characters scrolling endlessly down her sleeves and collar. The folder was back in her hands. "You're late," she said. "I didn't agree to this," I snapped. "But you opened the email. You tricked me." She tilted her head. "You applied." "I don't remember applying." She opened the folder. Memory redactions are common. Most applicants block the moment. Fear response. I stepped forward, furious. "Let me go." She didn't flinch. "Would you like to appeal your placement?" I blinked. "My what?" She slid a pen across the desk. It hovered a millimeter above the surface. "Initial placement has been assigned. Role: Archivist, Tier 2. Rejection is permissible, but rejection requires review." I backed away. The door behind me was gone. Another door slid open on the far wall. Inside, a room of mirrors. Each one showed a version of me. Some older, some younger, some scarred. One was burning. Another was laughing manically in a padded room. A whisper filled the air, the same voice I'd heard before. Every applicant is eventually processed. I screamed and swung my arm at the mirror closest to me. It cracked. Not shattered, bled. Thick, black ink poured from the fracture, spreading across the floor. The woman stood calmly. "Now you've damaged property. That means we can't let you go." The ink reached my shoes. It hissed softly, seeping into the seams, curling around my ankles like vines. I jumped back, but the floor beneath me pulsed, soft and warm. It wasn't concrete anymore. It was skin. I heard it breathing. The mirrors around me began to warp. Each version of me stepped forward, pressing their palms to the glass. And then, in unison, they spoke. "You said yes." I shook my head. "No, I never." "You read the terms. You click submit. Consent is irreversible." Their voices overlapped like a chorus being pulled through static. The ink rose higher, sloshing like water now, but thick, heavy with memory. I could feel it pressing into my skull. My thoughts grew fuzzy. I tried to recall what day it was, what street I lived on. My name. It danced just out of reach. Then I remembered the folder. The original one. It had everything. My history. My mind. My life. If I could destroy it, maybe I could break their hold. I lunged for the desk. The woman didn't move. She only whispered, "It already belongs to the system." But I didn't care. I grabbed the folder and ripped it open. Pages fluttered, caught in an unseen wind. But instead of falling, they flew. Dozens of copies of me burst from the file like insects, each one gasping, screaming, weeping. They swarmed the room. Some ran. Some dropped to their knees. Others crawled toward me, grabbing my legs. "Help me," one said in a hoarse voice. "Please, you're the only one who still remembers." "I don't understand," I cried. "What is this place?" A voice echoed from the mirrors, not mine this time, a child's. "It's where people go when no one hires them." I turned. One of the mirrors had changed. It showed a black void. A single door hovered in its center, slightly ajar. Inside was a desk, a chair, a badge. Mine. I was being assigned. No more interviews. No more options. Processing complete. The woman nodded. Time to begin. I fought it. Whatever force was pulling me toward the mirror, toward the desk in the void, wasn't gravity. It was like being reeled in by my own forgotten decisions. My feet slid over the slick, ink-slick floor. My doppelgangers cried out behind me, reaching. Some dissolved into paper scraps. Others melted into puddles of data. I screamed, dug my nails into the floor, but my fingers left no scratches. The material was too soft, too alive. Just before I crossed the threshold of the mirror, the child's voice returned. It hurts less if you don't struggle. I closed my eyes, and the next time I opened them, I was sitting at the desk, in the void. The mirror was gone. The woman was gone. The noise gone. Only the desk remained, and the folder. Same name, same contents. But now, every page was blank. Then words began appearing, line by line, without a pen. Orientation, Level 1 Archivist, Memory Reclamation Division. I tried to stand. My legs didn't move. My arms didn't feel like mine. A monitor slid out of the desk. Black screen, one blinking cursor. Then it began displaying images. My memories. First day of school. The night my dog died. The smell of rain the first time I kissed someone. I tried to turn away, but I couldn't. My eyes wouldn't blink. I was being drained. Each image flickered, paused, vanished, leaving an empty space behind my eyes where it used to be. And then something worse. Not just my memories. New ones began pouring in. Riding a train I've never ridden. Feeling heartbreak over people I don't know. I was being filled, too, with lives not mine. For storage? For safekeeping? For punishment? I couldn't tell. A voice buzzed through the desk. You are now part of the network. Processing quota. 1,200 memories per cicle. Do not deviate. I screamed silently, but no sound came out. I tried to reach inward, to the version of myself that remembered why I came here, what my real name was. But every time I got close, a new memory smothered it. I forgot my mother's voice, then my favorite food, then the shape of my own face. And then, just when I thought I'd slip away forever, a crack, a flicker of static, and something new appeared on the screen. Another candidate has entered the building, preparing application materials. The screen pulsed with the words. Another candidate has entered the building. A memory surfaced, not mine, but clear. A man in a hoodie stepping into the same lobby I'd entered. Same flickering red light. Same dead phone in his pocket. I saw it all through someone else's eyes. My eyes. Because that's what I had become. A lens. A filter. A relay point in something vast and hungry. The desk vibrated, and a file printed itself slowly. Warm to the touch, bleeding faint light from the margins. It was for the new applicant. His name was James Fulton, 29, graphic designer, struggling with rent. No family left. Desperate. Exactly like I had been. The file floated up, looked around, confused, frightened. I wanted to scream, to tell him to run, but my body remained frozen. Then something flickered inside me, resentment. He was just like me, and I hated him for still having a choice. The screen displayed his memories, scrolling past rapidly. Late nights, breakups, small victories, quiet defeats. He looked around, saw the folder with his name on it. Reached out. I wanted to stop him, but something inside me didn't. I watched as his face slackened, recognition dawning. I remembered that look. I had that look. James picked up the folder. Processing initiated. That voice again. That cursed voice. The same chair I was in appeared behind him. He sat, just like I did. A light clicked on above him. Then another voice, mechanical and cold, filled the air. Welcome, applicant 034. My desk shut down. The lights above me dimmed. I had completed my task. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the final sentence on my screen. Thank you for your service. You may now be archived. The ground beneath me opened. I fell. Not fast. Not slow. Just downward. Into blackness. Into silence. I woke up in my bed. Sunlight filtered in. My phone buzzed. My bank account was full. My resume polished. A new job offer sat in my inbox. But I don't remember applying. And every night since, at exactly midnight, a new folder prints from my home printer. It always has a name. And by morning, one more person is missing. I don't know who I am anymore. But I know this. Some jobs never let you quit. Story 9. My grandfather's clock counts down to the wrong time. By you/Cindervale 77. My grandfather died 3 months ago, and he left me the clock. It's a huge thing. 7 feet tall, carved from dark oak, with intricate inlays of wolves and crows. I used to be terrified of it as a kid. I'd cover my ears whenever it chimed. The sound was too deep, too heavy, like it echoed from underground. In his will, he wrote only this: "To Mason, I leave the clock. Keep it wound. Never let it strike midnight." Weird thing to write. But then again, Grandpa was always a little off. I brought it home and put it in the living room. It was heavy as hell. Took 2 friends and a dolly just to roll it through the door. I didn't win it at first. Figured I'd just leave it as a creepy antique and move on. But 2 nights after it arrived, I woke up at 3 a.m. to find it ticking. I swear to you, I never touched it. The pendulum swung slowly, methodically, like it had never stopped. Worse, it read 11:47 p.m. I checked the kitchen clock, 3:01 a.m. I checked my phone, same. Only the grandfather clock insisted it was just 13 minutes to midnight. I figured the mechanism was off, but when I tried to open the casing to reset it, the door wouldn't budge. The keyhole was sealed, almost like it had fused shut. Then, just as I gave up and turned away, the clock chimed. Once. A low, groaning sound like the earth yawning. And as soon as it rang, I swear the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. I felt something brush past me, cold and wet, like fingers dragging across my neck. I spun around, no one there. But the pendulum had stopped, and the clock now read 11:48. Exactly 1 minute later than before. I didn't sleep after that. I tried covering it with a blanket, but the ticking got louder. Tried moving it, but when I touched the side panel, my fingers came away with splinters and blood. Since then, it's been counting down. Every night, no matter what time it really is. The hands creep closer to midnight, and every time it hits a new minute, it chimes. Once per minute, never twice, never 3, just one echoing toll, as if it's preparing for something. I tried unplugging it, even though I knew it wasn't electric. It just kept ticking. I even brought in a clock repair guy, Joe, from the strip mall off Franklin. When he saw the thing, he gave a low whistle and said it was the oldest bastard he'd ever touched. "I can fix it," he said, "but I'll need to take the casing off." He tried prying it open. Tried everything. Screwdriver bent. Crowbar snapped. Then his hands started bleeding. Tiny pinpricks all over his palms, like he'd pressed them against a bed of thorns. He didn't say much after that. Just packed up and said, "This thing doesn't want to be fixed," before backing out of the house like it might chase him. That night, the clock read 11:53. Still ticking. Still chiming once, every 60 seconds. I started recording it with my phone, hoping maybe I could catch whatever was going on. When I played the footage back, I noticed something off. At 11:51, when the chime struck, my living room camera glitched. Just a flicker, barely noticeable, but frame by frame, there was a shadow in the doorway. No shape, just a tall, narrow blur. It wasn't there before the chime, and it was gone after. At 11:52, another chime. This time, the shadow was closer. Still unclear. Still wrong. At 11:53, the current time, the shadow stood just behind the couch. Behind where I sit when I watch. I haven't looked at 11:54 yet. I'm scared of what I'll see. But tonight, the clock's going to reach midnight. It's been gaining a minute per night. Always advancing. Never retreating. I tried moving it to the basement. Didn't help. Now the ticking echoes through the walls. My neighbors asked if I've been doing construction. One of them said he heard the chimes in his dreams. He joked about it. Until the next morning, when I found him standing in front of the clock. Sleepwalking. Eyes wide open. Mouth moving like he was whispering. I asked what he was saying. He blinked, looked confused, and ran out without answering. Later, I found fingerprints on a glass pane of the clock face. But they weren't mine. They were on the inside. Last night, the clock hit 11:56. From minutes to midnight. For chimes left. I tried leaving the house, driving out of town, booking a room at a cheap motel 2 hours away. It didn't matter. At 11:56 p.m., the chimes sounded. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it from the bathroom mirror. The sound didn't echo in the room. It echoed through me. And when I looked into the mirror, the reflection wasn't mine. It was me standing in my living room, in front of the clock, smiling. I dropped my toothbrush, stepped back, and the reflection followed. But not perfectly. Slight lags. Movements out of sync. I blinked. It didn't. I ran. When I got back to my apartment, the clock was silent. But it now read 11:57. I deleted the video recordings, tore down every mirror, boarded up the windows, but I know the next chime will come anyway. I thought about smashing it, took a sledgehammer to the glass. The moment it struck, the pendulum stopped mid-swing. For a second, everything in the room felt too still. The shadows froze. The light dimmed, not like a power surge, but like something behind the bulb had blinked. Then, the hammer bent in half, just curled inward like soft plastic. My arm went numb. For hours, my fingers wouldn't close. The clock resumed ticking. Louder now, like it was angry. I found a note tucked beneath the baseboard. Old, yellowed, written in my grandfather's handwriting. It's not a clock. It's a cage. Don't let it break. Don't let it free itself. Time is the only thing keeping it contained. When the hands reach midnight, the door opens. I don't know what he meant. I don't want to know. But tonight, it's 11:58. 2 chimes left, and I can already hear footsteps in the hallway. Slow, measured, matching the pendulum's swing. Tick, tock, step, step. I pushed a chair against the door, locked every window. Lights off, phone off. I'm writing this on a laptop with 4% battery. There's no more advice in the will. No more notes. Just me, and the sound of the clock beating like a second heart, and something behind it whispering my name. Tonight, the clock struck 11:59. 1 minute to midnight. The final chime. I thought it would be louder, but it wasn't. It was softer than the rest, like a breath. Like the thing inside didn't need to announce itself anymore. It was ready, and so was the house. The walls shifted when the bell rang. I don't mean creaked. I mean they moved subtly, as if the entire apartment had inhaled. I stared at the clock, hands trembling, flashlight beam wavering over its carved face. The wolves on the wood didn't look like wolves anymore. Their teeth were longer, their eyes deeper. One had something in its mouth. A limb. I stepped closer. The glass had fogged over from the inside. A handprint formed from behind the glass. 5 fingers, long, crooked, dragging downward. Then it tapped. Once, and on the back of my neck, something cold mirrored the touch. I screamed, spun around. No one was there. The clock's pendulum stopped. I backed away. Silence. Then the lights flickered off all at once. Complete darkness. And in that stillness, I heard it. The sound of the clock's door creaking open. I didn't move. Couldn't. Something stepped out. I didn't see it. I felt it. Weight in the room. Pressure behind the eyes. Like a second gravity pulling everything inward. It moved with a wet, ticking rhythm, soft pads of flesh over hardwood, followed by something sharper dragging behind. My flashlight flickered back on, by itself, and I saw the clock was empty. The pendulum was gone. So was the face. The hand of the clock no longer pointed at anything. They had unraveled, long and thin like tendrils draped down to the floor. One of them twitched. There were footprints leading from the base. Black, oily, human, but wrong. Too long. The toes curved upward. The floor was stained with the trail. It led into the hallway, to my bedroom door, which was open, even though I know I locked it, even though I heard it lock. I backed into the kitchen, slammed the door shut, but I could still hear it moving around in there, opening drawers, shuffling, humming, a tune I didn't recognize, but somehow knew I'd heard before. The same one the clock always chimed, slowed down, like a funeral march dragged through tar. It's still in the house. I haven't left the kitchen in hours. The door won't open anymore. I've tried everything, kicking, slamming, even a knife wedged in the frame. Nothing. It's like the walls don't want me to leave. The ticking hasn't stopped, but now it's coming from everywhere. Inside the walls, beneath the floor, behind my teeth. Sometimes it slows, like it's listening. Then it speeds up like a second heart panicking in time with mine. At some point, I must have passed out. When I woke up, I wasn't alone. There were photographs taped to the fridge. Ones that weren't there before. They were of me, sleeping, sitting at the kitchen table, crying. In each one, there's something behind me. A tall silhouette with no face, leaning closer, almost curious. One photo was dated tomorrow. In it, I'm lying on the floor, eyes open, mouth open. Still, I burned that one. But the ashes spelled out the number 12 in a perfect circle. Midnight. I think it's counting down to something bigger than just a chime. Maybe it already happened. Maybe time just hasn't caught up with it yet. I heard my grandfather's voice today, clear as anything. It came from inside the pantry, whispering, "It lives in the seconds. Don't blink when it strikes." I opened the pantry door. Nothing there. Just cans, dust, and a cold draft rising from the floorboards. That's when I noticed the crack beneath the clock. There's something underneath it, a space that wasn't there before. The floorboards around it have started to rot. I can smell the mold from across the room, sharp and earthy. But it's not the smell that bothers me. It's the sound. Low, like breath, but deeper, like something dreaming beneath the boards. The clock's face has changed again. It now reads -00:01. Negative time, time that shouldn't exist. Each minute past midnight is borrowed. I don't know what happens when it runs out, but I've started seeing glimpses of other places through the pendulum hole. Not rooms, not buildings, landscapes, impossible ones. Endless forests of black trees under a sky of gears. Oceans made of whispering ink, and something at the horizon. Towering, watching, waiting. I think the clock was built to contain it. And now it's empty. Now it's here. I found more notes hidden inside the clock's casing. They were written on the backs of old photographs. Black and white portraits of people I've never met, each with wide, terrified eyes. One note read, "The first chime opens the eye. The last chime opens the door." Another simply said, "We were never meant to mark time this way." My grandfather had been documenting things. Encounters. Distortions. He wasn't crazy. He was trying to warn someone. Maybe me. One page was a drawing. Childlike. It showed the clock, but instead of numbers, it had teeth. The pendulum was a dangling spine. At the bottom was a stick figure being pulled inward, arms flailing. The back had one line, scrawled in frantic pen. "Do not stare when the hands spin backward." At first, I thought he was being poetic. Then I saw it happen. It was subtle at first. The minute hand shuddered, then inched back, then again. Faster. The ticking reversed, and the air folded. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the room around me crumpled inward for a second and reassembled. Suddenly, the dishes I'd broken yesterday were whole. The photo I burned? Back on the fridge. The timestamp now read, 1 day ago. It's resetting things. Not just time events. I should be terrified, but I felt a terrible calm. Like something behind my eyes wanted this. Welcomed it. I watched the clock reverse for 3 full minutes. In that time, I saw people I knew appear at the window, people who had died. My grandmother, my high school friend Max, even a version of me. He looked tired, pale, smiling like he knew what was coming. He mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I could read his lips. We all returned to the tick, and then he vanished. I turned away from the clock. The room was darker than before. Shadows hung in the corners like wet curtains. And from inside the clock, something spoke. A voice I didn't recognize. Not human. Metallic. Hollow. Echoing. "The hour is no longer yours." The clock struck once more. Even though it wasn't time. Even though it never stopped. There's no time anymore. Not in the normal way. The sun still rises. The phone still buzzes. But inside the house, it's always night. Always 11:59. The clocks in here no longer match the world outside. My phone shows the right time until I cross the threshold into the living room. Then the screen warps. The numbers slide and distort, sometimes forming symbols I can't read. Sometimes I see my name instead of the time. I tried escaping again. Made it 3 blocks before everything changed. The street looped. The third time I passed my own house without turning, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. The world stuck. Like the second hand broke off time's watch and jammed the gears. I came back and found the clock waiting, as always. But now there was something new. The glass had been removed. Not broken. Removed. The face was exposed, and something inside had changed. Instead of a single pendulum, there were now 12. Each one swinging at a different rhythm. And every time I looked away and back again, they were in new positions. Like they were syncing with me. I heard a ticking in my chest. And when I checked the mirror, I saw it. Just for a split second. Something swinging inside my ribcage. A pendulum. I collapsed. Dreamed. In the dream, I stood in a vast room of clocks. Floor to ceiling. Some ticking, some frozen, some bleeding black fluid that whispered in reverse. In the center stood a massive version of my grandfather's clock, easily 20 feet tall. At its base was a door, and from behind it, I heard everyone I've ever lost calling my name. I stepped closer, and the hands of the giant clock spun violently. Forward, backward, forward again. Each spin tore through my memories. I could feel them being erased and rewritten. By the time I reached the door, I wasn't sure who I was anymore, but I still opened it. Inside was a workshop. Hundreds of clockmakers, faceless, assembling timepieces out of bones. Each clock had a name carved into it, and one of them was mine. I woke up screaming. The Real clock stood before me, and the last note from my grandfather had appeared on its base. Not written, etched into the wood. When the 13th chime strikes, you'll take my place. It's midnight now, but the clock hasn't chimed. Not once. It's silent, watching me with its open face and empty hands. I think it's waiting for me to make a choice. Take the key, open the panel, step inside, become the new pendulum. I feel the weight pulling me forward. My heartbeat matches its rhythm. Tick, tock, tick. I understand now. This wasn't inheritance. It was succession, a recruitment. Grandpa didn't die. He was relieved. And now it's my turn. The 13th chime will come the moment I accept it. The clock is empty, and so am I. Story 10. There's a man living in my security camera footage. By u/static frame 93. It started with motion alerts. Nothing unusual at first. My porch camera pinged me every few hours. Mostly stray cats or wind-blown leaves. But last Wednesday at 3:13 a.m., I got a notification, motion detected, front door. I checked my phone out habit and paused. A man was standing on my porch, not moving, not knocking, just staring. He wore a plain jacket, no logos, zipped to the chin. His face was pale, almost too smooth. At first, I figured it was a prank, some neighbor messing around, until I realized he wasn't casting a shadow, and he didn't blink. I rewound the footage to find the moment he arrived. There was no arrival. He wasn't there, and then he was. One frame to the next. The timestamp didn't jump, but he just appeared like a film cut. He stood there for exactly 2 minutes and 17 seconds, then vanished. No movement, just gone. I scrubbed through the whole clip, frame by frame. One frame, he's there. Next frame, empty porch. No fading, no blur, just deleted. It was unsettling, but I told myself it had to be a glitch. Maybe a compression issue or something with the upload. The next night, it happened again. Same time, 3:13 a.m. Same man, same expressionless stare. But this time, he was closer. 2 steps closer to the door. Still no shadow. Still no blinking. Still no entry or exit. I didn't sleep. I watched the feed on repeat. I even went outside at 3:10 a.m., phone in hand, and waited. Nothing there. Porch was empty. But when I checked the live camera feed, there he was, right in front of me, staring into the camera, right past me. I turned around, nothing. But my screen showed him inches away from me. My breath caught. The app glitched. Froze. Then the screen went black. And in the faint reflection of the phone glass, I saw a pale face behind mine. I dropped the phone. It hit the porch with a crack loud enough to make my heart stop. When I picked it up, the screen had returned to the app. The man was gone. No motion alert. No record of him ever being there. Just a new clip, 17 seconds long, timestamped 3:13 a.m. I tapped play. It was black. All of it just static. Except at the very end, the image flickered. For half a second, a single frame. It was me, but not Liv. It was me, lying on the floor inside my house, blood pooling around my head. I shut the app, deleted it, tore the camera off the siding, and smashed it on the concrete. The plastic shattered, wires split. I tossed the pieces in a trash bag and dumped it 2 streets over. But the next night, I still got an alert. Same time, 3:13 a.m. Motion detected, front door. Impossible. The camera was gone. I opened the app anyway, and there he was, standing in the exact spot where the camera used to be, looking into a lens that no longer existed. The app said the camera was offline, but the footage played anyway. His head tilted this time. as if he knew I was watching from a different angle, as if he preferred it. I went to bed shaking, doors locked, windows bolted, lights on. But at 3:17 a.m., the doorbell rang. Just once. I didn't answer. Instead, I slid my phone under the door and started recording. When I checked the video, there was no one there. No sound. But the background of the footage had changed. The house across the street? Gone. The trees? Borda. Dead. Everything looked older. Colder. The wind didn't rustle leaves. It dragged. And then, toward the end of the clip, the man leaned into frame. From above. As if he were hanging from a ceiling, upside down. His eyes were wide open, but they didn't reflect the light. They absorbed it. The last frame was a close-up of his mouth. Smiling. With my face stretched across his teeth like a mask. I stayed up the next night, knife in hand, watching every second of the clock crawl past midnight. 3:12 a.m. hit. No alert, no noise, but the air changed. It thickened like breathing through syrup. The room got colder, and the shadows in the corners felt like they were breathing. I stared at my phone. No notifications. I opened the app anyway. A new camera had appeared, labeled inside. I didn't have any indoor cameras. I tapped it. The feed showed my bedroom. My bed. Me. Sleeping. Except I wasn't asleep. I was sitting in the living room. Watching. I stood up and tiptoed toward the bedroom. Heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. Door shut. I slowly opened it. Empty. Bed untouched. But the live feed still showed me sleeping there. Same blanket. Same position. Same faint twitch in my foot that I knew I did when I dreamed. I waved my hand in front of the bed. The camera feed didn't react. Then the figure on the bed opened its eyes, looked directly at me, and smiled. I slammed the door. The phone buzzed. New notification. Motion detected. Kitchen. I don't have a camera in the kitchen, but the app now showed one. Same grainy footage. A shape stood in the corner, near the fridge. Arms long, almost scraping the floor. Head tilted at an impossible angle, like it had no bones. It slowly lifted a hand and waved. To me, I bolted out the front door. I didn't stop running until I hit the main road and flagged a passing car. I spent the rest of the night at a 24-hour diner, sitting in the brightest booth I could find, phone off, try not to fall apart. At sunrise, I went home. Everything was back to normal. No cameras listed on the app. No notifications. The house felt empty again, until I turned on the TV. Instead of my usual streaming menu, it showed a paused video feed of me walking into the room. On a slight delay, I stepped left. My reflection followed, a beat too late. Then it smiled. I didn't. I unplugged the TV. Didn't matter. The screen stayed on. That version of me kept smiling, too wide, too still. Then, slowly, it raised a hand and pointed behind me. I turned. No one. But when I looked back, the reflection had vanished. Not just from the TV, from everything. Mirrors, phone selfies, even the chrome faucet, no reflection. Just blank. I don't know what that means, but I haven't seen myself since. That night, the camera app returned. This time it didn't wait for me to open it. At exactly 3:13 a.m., my phone lit up on its own. A single word displayed in bold white font on black screen. Join. I tried powering it off. The screen stayed lit. The word changed. Too late. The phone grew hot in my hand, buzzing like it was alive. And then it switched to a new feed. Camera 5, basement. I don't have a basement, but the footage showed one. Stone walls, dripping pipes, and in the center, a wooden chair. Tied to the chair. Me. Not a copy. Not a glitch. Me. Head slumped. Shirt torn. And above me, in the darkness, dozens of pale hands reaching down. They didn't touch me. They hovered, fingers twitching like they were learning how. I dropped the phone. Shattered it with my heel. When I looked down, the screen was cracked dead, but a faint light flickered in the reflection of the black glass. A face. Not mine. Not anymore. I left the house again, took the bus out of town, and stayed with a cousin 3 states over. No electronics. No Wi-Fi. I didn't tell them why. After a week, I started to feel normal again. I even laughed once. Then, last night, I found a package waiting for me on the front porch. No return address. Inside was a brand new security camera, already plugged in, already online. The lens turned toward me, and the phone in my cousin's kitchen buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. I didn't even touch the package. I kicked it off the porch and smashed it with a brick until the lens popped out like a glass eye. Still, my cousin's phone kept buzzing. I watched him pick it up, frown, and look toward me. "You back already?" he asked. "What?" I said. He turned the phone so I could see. The feed showed his porch just a few minutes earlier. I was on it, but I wasn't alone. There was a second figure behind me. Tall, pale, face obscured by distortion. The footage glitched whenever it moved, like it couldn't exist in full resolution. "Must be a double," my cousin laughed, trying to shake it off. But the audio from the clip was clear. My voice said, "Don't let him see me." The second figure whispered back, something unintelligible, like code, wrapped in breath. Then it turned and looked directly at the camera. Right at me. My cousin hasn't looked at me the same since. I see it in his eyes, doubt, fear, maybe recognition, or maybe he's already been replaced. That night, I pretended to sleep on the couch. At 3:13 a.m., I heard his phone buzz again. Then footsteps in the hallway. I stayed still. Someone passed by, bare feet dragging. Slow. The TV flicked on by itself. Not static this time. A live feed of my cousin. Standing in the kitchen, eyes wide, mouth open far too wide, like it had torn at the corners. He whispered something over and over. Frame by frame, I made out the words. "He's not you. He's not you. He's not you." The feed zoomed in. On me, still pretending to sleep. And behind me, the tall man. Closer now, leaning over the couch. I didn't turn, didn't breathe. Just listened to the soft hum of static and the faint whir of unseen cameras adjusting their focus. When I finally moved, the screen cut to black. And across the middle, a message. "You are now live." I left before sunrise. Didn't say goodbye. I didn't trust my cousin. Not anymore. Not after I found the cameras. 4 of them, hidden in his house. 1 behind a vent. 1 in the lamp. 1 inside a book, hollowed out. And 1 in the bathroom mirror. I only saw that last one when the mirror flickered. Like it blinked. Nowhere feels safe. Even outside, I can hear faint clicking, like shutters snapping open and shut in the sky. I tried sleeping in a motel 2 towns over. No internet. No smart devices. Still, the static found me. I woke up to the TV on, no remote in sight. It wasn't playing footage. It was showing me a countdown. From 3:13 down to 0. When it hit midnight, the screen turned black and displayed just one word. Recording. I smashed the TV. But the next night it came back. Different motel. Different town. Same message. I think I've become part of the feed now. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean literally. Sometimes I see things in the corners of my vision. Lens flares, motion blurs, data loss. Like the world is compressing me, glitching me. And my skin, it feels wrong. Not soft, not warm, plastic. Once, in a diner bathroom, I saw a version of myself in the mirror. Except he moved after I did. Not slow, delayed. He blinked twice, then mouthed, "You're buffering," and grinned. His teeth were camera lenses. I ran. I stopped using phones, but it doesn't matter. The cameras aren't in devices anymore. They're in moments. Last night, I looked into a puddle on the street and saw my apartment behind me. Lee, empty, except for the man, standing by the window, recording, always recording. I screamed at a stranger on the bus this morning. He was holding a camcorder, but there was no tape inside, just a spinning mirror. He said, "Smile," and I couldn't stop myself from obeying. I think that's how it starts. You stop recognizing your own face. Then your reflection smiles when you don't. Then it speaks. Tonight is different because I found a live stream labeled Final Broadcast. It's scheduled for 3:13 a.m. And the thumbnail? It's my front door. From inside. I came back home. I don't know why. Maybe I was drawn, like gravity, pulled by something I can't see but feel inside my teeth. It was exactly 2:56 a.m. when I stepped through the door. The air smelled like dust and film. The lights flickered in sequence, like someone flipping through a slideshow too fast. My house felt unfamiliar, like a movie set built to look like my home. Too perfect, too staged, and too quiet. I opened the camera app again. It was already running. Only one feed. Final broadcast, live. It showed me, standing in the living room, looking at the phone, and behind me, just out of reach, was him, the man, pale, featureless. Only now I realized he wasn't behind me. He was in me. His shape fit around my shadow, clinging, merging. I turned slowly and looked into the mirror beside the TV. He stared back, wearing my skin like a loose coat. And I was smiling. He raised a finger and pointed to my chest. I felt it then, something ticking inside me. With every beat of my heart, the tick grew louder. 3:11 a.m. The app buzzed. Final broadcast begins in 2 minutes. The front door opened by itself. I didn't move. Couldn't. I was part of the stream now. I could feel the viewers, watching, breathing with me.